Are you absolutely sure the history you were taught is even real? Because for over 4,000 years, the Earth has been hiding secrets that never made it into any textbook. Civilizations that rose, thrived, and then vanished. Massive structures aligned with the stars with terrifying precision. Artifacts engineered with accuracy modern machines can barely match. Who built them? What knowledge did they possess? And why do these patterns show up across continents that supposedly never contacted each other? Tonight, we go into a place burned by desert winds for millennia. Shahr-e Sukhteh, the burnt city, deep in the scorched southeast of Iran. A Bronze Age metropolis abandoned more than 40 centuries ago. But the ruins that remain suggest something far more advanced than anything we believed could exist at that time. This is not sci-fi. This is not myth. These are real artifacts, real structures, real mysteries. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and open your mind, because what you're about to see may destroy everything you thought you knew about human history. Amidst the dust and fractured clay of this ancient metropolis, one artifact stands apart. A small, hollow eye, made of bitumen and carefully inlaid with a polished crystal, held together with gold. At barely an inch in height, it might seem insignificant, yet its presence raises questions that historians and archaeologists still grapple with today. The artificial eye was discovered in a burial, fitted with precision into a socket of what is believed to have been a wooden skull. This craftsmanship is extraordinary. The iris, finely shaped, catches the light. The curve of the eyelids seems almost lifelike. Even by modern standards, producing such a realistic ocular prosthetic would require meticulous skill. Some researchers argue that it is the oldest known prosthetic in the world, a testament to a society that understood not only the mechanics of the human body, but also the social and psychological impact of appearance and identity. But how did they achieve such precision? Modern replicas have demonstrated that creating this eye is far from simple. The tiny, hollow cavity, the perfect curvature of the crystal, the gold inlays, they suggest a level of knowledge about optics and anatomy that seems surprisingly sophisticated for a city that existed around 3100 BCE. What tools could they have used? What techniques allowed them to shape crystal into a smooth, perfectly rounded iris? And why does it seem to accurately mirror the depth and structure of a human eye? Some explanations are pragmatic. Scholars suggest it was an attempt at functional prosthesis, designed to restore vision or at least the semblance of it. Perhaps the person it belonged to lost an eye and required a replacement to participate fully in society, to maintain their status, or to fulfill ritualistic needs after death. In a world where survival was harsh and diseases often fatal, preserving physical wholeness may have carried both practical and spiritual significance. After all, the burial contained not just the eye, but other grave goods, ornaments, tools, and pottery, signaling that this individual may have held a special place in Shahr-e Sukhteh society. Yet, as one delves deeper, the questions multiply. Could this object have served more than a practical or symbolic purpose? Its lifelike precision hints at an awareness of human perception and aesthetics that seems almost uncanny for the era. Some researchers speculate that it may have had ritual or even mystical significance, perhaps used in ceremonies to confer protection or to honor the deceased. Was it purely ornamental, intended to impress the living with the skill of the artisan? Or did it serve a deeper function, one lost to time, known only to those who lived in this city thousands of years ago? Shahr-e Sukhteh itself is a city of mysteries. Excavations have uncovered elaborate urban planning, advanced water management systems, and intricate crafts suggesting a society capable of remarkable innovation. And yet, despite the evidence of sophistication, the artificial eye remains unique. No other prosthetic of comparable craftsmanship has been found from this period anywhere in the world. It stands alone, an isolated whisper from a forgotten civilization. Its existence challenges the assumption that technological and medical advances followed a simple linear path through human history. As we consider this artifact, one cannot help but wonder about the hands that made it. Who was the craftsman who shaped this tiny crystal with such care? And for whom was it intended? Did they understand the symbolism that the eye would carry across millennia? Or was it simply the culmination of skill and necessity? And beyond that, what does it tell us about the people of Shahr-e Sukhteh? Their understanding of the human body, their value of aesthetic precision, and their contemplation of life, death, and what lies beyond. In the end, the artificial eye of Shahr-e Sukhteh does not offer easy answers. It does not yield to straightforward interpretation or fit neatly into our understanding of early human history. Instead, it invites us to pause and reflect on the ingenuity and creativity of our ancestors, on the limits of what we know, and on the countless mysteries that remain buried beneath the sands of time. Each glint of gold and crystal seems to whisper a question that echoes across 4 millennia. How much of human history, skill, and knowledge remains hidden, waiting to be discovered, understood, and marveled at? As the echoes of the Chimu civilization fade across the windswept plains of Peru, our journey shifts thousands of miles away, across time and continents, to the heart of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization itself. Here, along the banks of the mighty Euphrates, lies Babylon, a city of monumental ambition and enduring enigma. Imagine standing before the ruins of its once majestic walls, fragments of baked brick and mud still etched with inscriptions worn smooth by centuries of sun and sand. The air seems thick with the weight of millennia, as though every step carries the whispers of kings, priests, and countless unknown lives who once moved through streets lined with palaces and temples that reached for the heavens. It is here, in the 6th century BCE, that we encounter one of history's more curious figures, Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon. Unlike many rulers whose names survive merely as dates on a timeline, Nabonidus left a legacy that is both fascinating and perplexing. He was a king who seemed obsessed with time, stars, and ancient knowledge, a man whose choices would forever puzzle historians. His reign, lasting from 556 to 539 BCE, was marked by religious reform, a fascination with antiquity, and an unusual absence from his capital for prolonged periods. He famously entrusted the day-to-day governance of Babylon to his son Belshazzar, while he wandered the deserts, conducting rituals and recording celestial observations with painstaking care. The king's devotion to the moon god Sin, rather than the traditional Babylonian god Marduk, remains one of the enduring mysteries of this period. Ancient inscriptions reveal long lists of rituals, astronomical observations, and temple restorations dedicated to Sin, suggesting a depth of religious devotion rare even among kings. But why would a ruler of Babylon, the center of political and religious power, seemingly invert centuries of tradition? Was this purely personal piety, or was there a strategic, perhaps even esoteric purpose behind these choices? Babylon under Nabonidus was a city of marvels. Walls painted with brilliant tiles, towering ziggurats, and a labyrinth of canals and streets spoke of a civilization at the height of its technical and artistic ability. Nabonidus himself left behind clay cylinders, inscriptions that meticulously record his building projects, and astronomical observations, many of which hint at knowledge of planetary cycles that surpass what we might expect for the period. Scholars have noted that some of his observations, recorded with precise detail, may reflect an understanding of phenomena such as lunar eclipses, the motions of Venus, and even the regularity of Saturn's orbit. Could Nabonidus have possessed knowledge that bridged both science and ritual, blending the earthly and the celestial in ways that remain enigmatic to this day? Yet, for all this documentation, gaps remain. Archaeologists and historians continue to debate why Nabonidus would spend so much time away from the capital, living in remote fortresses such as Tima in the Arabian desert for nearly a decade. What drew him so far from the political center of his empire? Some suggest it was political, a calculated move to consolidate power or avoid internal conflict. Others propose more speculative theories, a king seeking hidden truths in forgotten temples or conducting rituals and experiments long lost to history. The desert, after all, is an unforgiving place, yet it appears to have held some irresistible significance for him. Adding to the mystery are accounts of social and religious unrest during his reign. The Babylonian priesthood, deeply tied to Marduk, reportedly resisted Nabonidus' focus on sin, and the king's unusual absences may have contributed to discontent. Texts hint at tension between the old order and the new, but the precise nature of this conflict remains elusive. Were these purely political struggles, or did they involve deeper, perhaps hidden knowledge, rituals, prophecies, or celestial calculations that the king alone understood? One of the most intriguing artifacts from this era is the Nabonidus cylinder, a clay record that details the king's restoration of ancient temples and his travels. The inscriptions emphasize devotion, reverence for the past, and a desire to preserve knowledge from earlier times. Nabonidus portrays himself as both historian and prophet, meticulously recording what others might forget. Yet even here, ambiguity abounds. His writings suggest extraordinary foresight, awareness of celestial patterns, and a preoccupation with timing events according to cosmic rhythms. Could there be a message encoded in these inscriptions, a guide to understanding events or knowledge that remains hidden to modern scholars? Even the circumstances of Nabonidus' downfall are wrapped in enigma. In 539 BCE, the Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, ending the dynasty that Nabonidus had meticulously built. Ancient accounts differ on whether he was captured, exiled, or perhaps quietly absorbed into the Persian administration. What becomes clear is that Babylon's final days under Nabonidus were marked by uncertainty and tension, a contrast to the meticulous care with which he chronicled the city's monuments and celestial cycles. What did he know that others did not? Did his fascination with the stars and the ancient world guide his decisions, or was it a private obsession, inscrutable to those around him? Walking among the ruins of Babylon today, it is easy to sense the echoes of Nabonidus' unusual reign. The sun sets behind the reconstructed walls, casting long shadows over the empty streets. The desert wind carries the faint impressions of temple rituals, scribes recording celestial events, and a king who may have glimpsed truths now lost to time. Nabonidus sought to connect the present with the distant past, to align human ambition with the rhythm of the cosmos, yet so much of his story remains inaccessible. As we reflect on this period, a question lingers. What did Nabonidus know that his contemporaries could not grasp? Was he a king ahead of his time, a historian, an astronomer, or perhaps a seeker of mysteries that stretched beyond the ordinary? And what secrets, buried beneath the sands of Babylon, remain waiting for discovery, clues to understanding a civilization whose genius, like that of the Chimu, still quietly defies our comprehension? From the deserts of Peru to the banks of the Euphrates, our journey through ancient civilizations now carries us to the highlands of Oaxaca, Mexico. Here, amid rugged mountains and mist-shrouded valleys, the Zapotec civilization flourished, leaving behind a legacy of astonishing artistry, architecture, and enigmatic knowledge. Imagine standing at the edge of Monte Alban, the Zapotec capital perched atop a flattened hill that dominates the surrounding valleys. The view stretches for miles. Terraced slopes, carved stone pyramids, and ceremonial plazas, all aligned with remarkable precision, as if the city itself were observing the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. The wind whispers through the ruins, carrying the faint echoes of rituals, markets, and the countless lives that once thrived in this mountain stronghold. The Zapotec civilization emerged around 500 BCE, reaching its height between 300 and 900 CE. They were skilled builders, astronomers, and artisans, crafting a society whose influence extended across much of present-day Oaxaca. Monte Alban was not just a city. It was a statement of power, culture, and knowledge. Its plazas are framed by stepped pyramids and platforms, each carefully oriented to the cardinal directions. Tombs, adorned with intricate murals and carved reliefs, offer glimpses into beliefs about death, the afterlife, and perhaps the cosmos itself. Yet, even with centuries of study, the full meaning behind these structures and artworks remains elusive. One of the most compelling mysteries of Monte Alban is its alignment and its observatories. Certain structures appear to track solar events, marking solstices and equinoxes with remarkable precision. Could these architectural choices indicate an advanced understanding of astronomy, rivaling civilizations half a world away in Mesopotamia or Peru? Were these alignments practical, serving agricultural and calendrical purposes, or did they hold spiritual significance, connecting the Zapotec people to forces beyond their world? The evidence suggests both, but the precise knowledge and methods remain a tantalizing puzzle. Equally intriguing are the artifacts and inscriptions uncovered at Zapotec sites. The danzantes, stone carvings depicting contorted human figures, have long baffled scholars. Were they depictions of ritual sacrifice, prisoners of war, or symbolic representations of celestial events? No surviving text fully explains their meaning, leaving us to wonder whether the Zapotecs encoded their history, religious practices, or cosmological observations in ways that remain partially hidden to us. Similarly, funerary tombs have yielded finely crafted ceramics, jewelry, and offerings, revealing a complex social hierarchy and a deep reverence for the dead. Yet, the symbolic logic connecting these artifacts, tombs, and monumental architecture is far from fully understood. Another layer of mystery emerges from the Zapotec writing system, one of Mesoamerica's earliest known scripts. Inscriptions on stone monuments and tombs reveal glyphs that record names, events, and possibly calendrical data. However, the script remains only partially deciphered. Could there be entire chapters of Zapotec history, knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or spiritual practices, encoded in symbols we have yet to understand? And if so, what truths about their society and about human ingenuity in general might still be waiting to be discovered? The Zapotecs also demonstrated mastery over the environment in ways that remain astonishing. Their agricultural terraces cling to steep hillsides, channeling water and soil to sustain large populations in a challenging landscape. Canals and irrigation systems show a sophistication that would have required careful observation, planning, and collaboration across generations. How did they develop such precise methods without metal tools, the wheel, or written instruction manuals as we know them? Was it purely trial and error? Or might there have been knowledge passed down orally, codified in ways we can no longer trace? Yet, despite the clarity of their physical achievements, there is an enduring sense of ambiguity. The sudden rise and eventual decline of Monte Alban, once a bustling urban center and a hub of Zapotec influence, raises questions that remain unanswered. Environmental changes, social shifts, or political conflicts may have played a role, but could there be factors hidden deeper in time, perhaps records lost to destruction or deliberate concealment, that would shed light on the civilization's trajectory? Walking among the terraces, plazas, and tombs of Monte Alban today, one senses the deliberate intelligence behind every stone, every carving, every alignment. The city feels alive with intent, as though its builders wanted to communicate across centuries, leaving a legacy that challenges us to see beyond mere ruins. The Zapotecs recorded their world in stone, in glyphs, in ritual objects, but the complete message has not yet been fully revealed. The mysteries of the Zapotec civilization are a quiet reminder that, even in societies long vanished, the past can speak if we know how to listen. Every mural, every glyph, every architectural choice invites us to ask, what knowledge did they possess that we have yet to uncover? Were their insights into astronomy, society, and spirituality advanced beyond our assumptions? And what other secrets of human ingenuity, carefully encoded in stone and earth, remain waiting for discovery, hidden in the highlands of Oaxaca? As the sun sets over the valleys, casting Monte Alban in a golden glow, shadows stretch across ancient plazas. The wind carries faint whispers of ritual chants, markets, and celebrations long past. We are left with questions that cannot yet be answered, a sense of awe that bridges millennia, and the realization that history, in its richest form, is often as much about what remains hidden as what is revealed. As the mountains of Oaxaca fade from view, our journey returns to the rugged coastlines of Peru, where the Moche civilization rose and thrived along the arid valleys of the northern Pacific. Here, the landscape is harsh and sun-baked, yet fertile where the rivers cut through the desert, and it is along these winding waterways that the Moche left their indelible mark. Picture the towering adobe pyramids of Oaxaca del Sol and Oaxaca de la Luna, their sun-bleached walls etched with reliefs depicting warriors, priests, and gods, silent storytellers of a society as complex as it was enigmatic. The wind whistles through the plazas and courtyards, carrying whispers of ritual chants and celebrations long vanished, as if the desert itself remembers the pulse of a civilization that thrived thousands of years ago. The Moche flourished between approximately 100 and 700 CE, dominating the northern coast of Peru with a combination of military power, sophisticated agriculture, and remarkable artistry. They mastered the difficult task of irrigating desert valleys, creating canals and reservoirs that sustained large populations and allowed for the cultivation of maize, beans, and cotton. Yet, while their practical achievements are well documented, the purpose and meaning of many of their most striking creations remain elusive. Their ceremonial centers, particularly the massive pyramids, are feats of engineering that continue to astonish archaeologists. Oaxaca del Sol, constructed from millions of adobe bricks, may have served as both a political hub and a ritual site, its scale signaling the power of the Moche elite. Oaxaca de la Luna, in contrast, offers glimpses into the spiritual life of the culture. Walls adorned with intricate murals depicting scenes of sacrifice, mythology, and ceremonial acts. Some portray human figures bound and offered to the gods, their expressions frozen in moments of reverence or terror. What drove the Moche to depict these rituals with such unflinching detail? Were these images mere representations of power, tools of religious instruction, or records of events whose true significance is lost to time? Moche art adds another layer of intrigue. Their ceramics, often molded in exquisite detail, capture scenes of daily life, warfare, and supernatural beings. Unlike other civilizations, the Moche frequently produced portrait vessels, each believed to depict a specific individual with astonishing realism. The precision of these likenesses suggests a society deeply interested in personal identity, status, and perhaps the spiritual essence of individuals. Yet the reasoning behind the countless depictions of ritual sacrifice, complex ceremonies, and fantastical creatures remains mysterious. Were these vessels used in funerary rites, political propaganda, or secret ceremonies known only to a select few? One of the enduring mysteries of the Moche is their ritualistic violence. Excavations at Oaxaca de la Luna have revealed hundreds of human remains, often showing signs of ceremonial decapitation, genital mutilation, or battlefield injuries. Scholars debate the reasons behind these practices. Were they offerings to appease the gods, demonstrations of state power, or both? And why did the Moche prioritize these rituals so heavily in their art and architecture, leaving a visual record that is at once compelling and unsettling? The Moche also left behind complex knowledge of astronomy, medicine, and metallurgy. Evidence suggests they tracked lunar and solar cycles, perhaps to guide agricultural schedules or ceremonial events. Their metalwork, particularly in gold and copper, exhibits techniques that some researchers argue were ahead of their time. Could the Moche have possessed a level of technological sophistication that modern scholars are only beginning to grasp? And if so, what knowledge has been lost beneath centuries of erosion, conquest, and decay? Even their sudden decline adds to the mystery. Around 700 CE, the Moche civilization seems to have fragmented, giving way to emerging polities and new cultures along the northern coast. Archaeological evidence points to environmental stress, including massive El Niño floods that may have destroyed irrigation systems and disrupted food production. Yet, the precision of their monumental constructions and the sophistication of their art suggest a society capable of extraordinary resilience. What truly led to their collapse? Was it nature alone? Or were there social, political, or spiritual factors we have yet to fully understand? Walking among the remnants of Oaxaca del Sol and Oaxaca de la Luna today, the desert heat is almost tangible, and the silence is profound. The adobe walls, murals, and ceremonial platforms seem to hold a latent intelligence, a record of a society that mastered both the physical and symbolic worlds. Each artifact, from a finely painted ceramic vessel to the skeletal remains of a sacrificed individual, invites reflection on human ambition, ingenuity, and the mysteries that survive time's erosion. The Moche civilization, much like the Zapotecs before them, challenges our understanding of ancient societies. Their knowledge of the natural world, their technological skill, and their complex spiritual life are preserved in fragments, tantalizingly incomplete. We can reconstruct elements of their society, yet so much remains enigmatic. How did they achieve such mastery over both landscape and ritual? What meanings lay hidden in their art, and what truths were encoded in their pyramids and tombs? Could there be aspects of Moche knowledge, astronomical, metallurgical, or spiritual, that we have yet to rediscover? As the sun sinks toward the Pacific horizon, casting long shadows over the desert valleys and the pyramid's stark facades, the remnants of the Moche civilization seem to pulse with life once more. The wind carries with it the faint echoes of chants, ceremonies, and daily life. A civilization that was sophisticated, brilliant, and profoundly human. And yet, despite all we have uncovered, a question lingers. What remains buried beneath the sands, waiting to reveal secrets that might forever alter our understanding of the Moche and of the human story itself? From the arid deserts and fertile valleys of Peru, our journey now carries us across oceans and millennia to the restless waters of the Mediterranean. Imagine standing on a rocky shoreline, the waves crashing against jagged cliffs, salt spray stinging the air, the horizon stretching endlessly toward lands that were, thousands of years ago, the stage for one of history's most confounding mysteries. It is here, along these coasts, and in the sprawling cities of the late Bronze Age, that the enigmatic sea peoples emerge, a name inscribed in ancient records, yet whose origins, culture, and ultimate fate remain shrouded in uncertainty. The sea peoples are known primarily through the records of the civilizations they confronted. Egyptian inscriptions, particularly those commissioned by Pharaoh Ramses III at Medinet Habu, depict massive naval battles, towns set ablaze, and invaders arriving from the sea with formidable ships and weapons. Yet the exact identity of these groups, their homelands, languages, and societal structures, remains a matter of intense debate. Were they marauding pirates exploiting the weakening Bronze Age kingdoms, displaced peoples fleeing famine or conflict, or a coalition of disparate tribes united by necessity? Every clue we uncover seems to deepen the enigma rather than resolve it. What makes the sea peoples particularly compelling is the scale and suddenness of their impact. They are credited with contributing to the collapse of multiple Mediterranean civilizations between roughly 1200 and 1150 BCE, including the Hittite Empire, the Mycenaean kingdoms, and cities along the Levantine coast. Archaeological layers reveal evidence of destruction, burned palaces, abandoned settlements, and hastily buried treasures. Yet, paradoxically, few direct artifacts or settlements can be conclusively attributed to the sea peoples themselves. How could a force so influential leave so little trace of its own culture? Was their society transient by design, or have the ravages of time simply erased their material legacy? Egyptian reliefs offer tantalizing but partial insight. Soldiers and ships are depicted in intricate detail, crests on helmets, weapons raised, and the chaos of battle, but the records are inevitably colored by the perspective of the victors. Ramses III portrays himself as triumphant, repelling these invaders in a series of dramatic campaigns. Yet inscriptions from the time hint at more complex interactions, treaties, resettlements, and integration of sea peoples into Egyptian territories. Did these groups truly come solely as conquerors? Or were they also migrants, traders, or mercenaries seeking survival in a rapidly changing world? Maritime technology, too, offers clues that both illuminate and confound. The ships described in Egyptian records were apparently capable of coordinated warfare, yet their construction, design, and the navigational skill required suggest knowledge far beyond that of a typical raiding party. Could the sea peoples have originated from multiple regions across the Aegean, Anatolia, or even further afield, bringing with them a blend of naval expertise, military strategy, and cultural practices that allowed them to challenge the dominant powers of the age? And if so, how did these skills vanish almost entirely after their conquests, leaving only indirect evidence in the ruins they left behind? Theories abound. Some scholars propose that the sea peoples were displaced populations fleeing environmental disaster or famine, a consequence of prolonged droughts and crop failures documented in paleoclimatic studies. Others suggest economic motivations, the search for fertile land and trade opportunities after the weakening of established kingdoms. More speculative interpretations hint at cultural memory encoded in myths and legends, stories of sudden invasions, monstrous ships, or mysterious strangers arriving from distant seas. What is clear is that the sea peoples were neither a single monolithic entity nor easily categorized within the familiar frameworks of Bronze Age civilizations. Even the aftermath of their incursions is puzzling. While many cities were destroyed or abandoned, others adapted, absorbed, or transformed, giving rise to new political and cultural landscapes in the Mediterranean. Could remnants of the sea peoples have influenced subsequent civilizations, their knowledge, technology, or customs subtly integrated into emerging societies? And if traces exist, why have we found so little to connect these people directly to the archaeological record? Walking along ancient harbors and cliffside fortifications today, one is struck by the tension between the vast expanse of the sea and the fragility of human endeavor. Every destroyed city, every layer of charred masonry, speaks to the scale of upheaval that occurred during the late Bronze Age, but the perpetrators themselves remain almost ghostly in the historical record. They left behind questions more enduring than answers. Who exactly were they? What motivated their relentless movement across the Mediterranean? And what knowledge, skills, or traditions did they carry with them that might have been lost to the tides of time? The sea peoples challenge our understanding of history in a way few other groups do. They remind us that civilization is not a steady progression, but a construct susceptible to sudden disruption, migration, and transformation. Their story, or rather the fragments we can reconstruct, invites reflection on the interplay between environment, society, and human ambition. They appear as shadows on the edge of recorded history, a reminder that some of the most significant forces in human affairs may leave almost no trace of themselves. As the sun sets over the Mediterranean, painting the waves in streaks of gold and crimson, it is easy to imagine the chaos and drama of those distant battles, ships cutting through turbulent waters, soldiers confronting the unknown, cities trembling under fire. And yet, despite the vivid accounts preserved in stone and papyrus, the sea peoples remain an enigma. What secrets of identity, origin, and culture remain hidden beneath the waves or buried under centuries of sand and silt. What might future discoveries reveal about these elusive mariners who once shaped the destiny of civilizations across the Mediterranean? From the turbulent waters of the Mediterranean, where the sea peoples left behind only traces of fire and fear, our journey returns once more to the sun-scorched coasts of Peru. Here, along the arid valleys that stretch toward the Pacific, the Chimu civilization carved out a world of extraordinary ambition, skill, and mystery. Imagine approaching Chan Chan, their vast adobe capital, from the windswept plains. The city stretches over 20 square kilometers, its walls rising up to 40 feet in places, sun-baked yet stubbornly intact. Narrow alleys twist between ceremonial plazas and massive compounds, and intricate reliefs of fish, birds, and waves decorate the walls, capturing a rhythm of life that has echoed across centuries. The desert wind moves like a whisper through the ruins, as if the city itself remembers the footsteps of those who once walked here. The Chimu thrived between roughly 900 and 1470 CE, dominating the northern coast of Peru before the rise of the Inca. They were master engineers, turning arid deserts into fertile valleys through sophisticated irrigation systems that channeled water from rivers to terraced fields. Their society was highly organized, with a centralized administration, specialized craftspeople, and a culture that left an enduring imprint on art, architecture, and metallurgy. Yet, for all their achievements, Chan Chan and the Chimu people continue to puzzle scholars. How could a civilization without iron tools, the wheel, or written language construct a city so immense, so meticulously planned, that it rivals later urban centers in complexity? The city itself is a testament to deliberate intelligence. Massive walls, carefully aligned compounds, and broad plazas suggest not only architectural skill, but social and political sophistication. Each relief carved into adobe conveys meaning, yet the precise interpretation remains elusive. Were these artistic motifs symbolic, telling stories of deities, cosmology, or social hierarchy? Or did they encode knowledge now lost, a silent record for future generations that modern researchers are only beginning to decode? The Chimu were also exceptional artisans. Their ceramics, textiles, and metalwork demonstrate techniques that remain astonishing today. Gold and silver were hammered and shaped into delicate objects, depicting creatures of myth, aquatic life, and ceremonial scenes. Some vessels and ornaments appear to serve ritual purposes, their forms and symbols suggesting a worldview in which art, spirituality, and daily life were inseparable. Could these objects hold secrets about Chimu religious practice, social order, or even knowledge of astronomy and mathematics that we have yet to fully understand? Equally mysterious is the evidence of their astronomical awareness. Certain architectural features, such as platform orientations and wall alignments, seem designed to track the movement of the sun and stars. Scholars speculate that these alignments may have guided agricultural planning or ceremonial timing, yet the degree of precision suggests knowledge far beyond what might be expected from a civilization without written records. How did the Chimu develop this understanding, and what methods did they use to preserve and transmit such knowledge across generations? Human remains and funerary practices add another layer of enigma. Tombs within Chan Chan reveal high-ranking individuals surrounded by textiles, ceramics, and metalwork. Some skeletons indicate ritualized death or sacrifice, Yet the cultural context for these practices is only partially understood. Were these acts expressions of religious devotion, demonstrations of political power, or symbolic performances designed to maintain cosmic or social order? The absence of written records leaves these questions tantalizingly unanswered. The city's sudden downfall adds to the intrigue. In the 1470s, the Chimu were conquered by the expanding Inca Empire, yet Chan Chan shows little evidence of violent destruction. Instead, the conquest appears to have been relatively rapid, with the Inca assimilating the Chimu people and their knowledge into a new empire. How did a civilization so large and organized fall so quickly? Was it military strategy, internal instability, or an unforeseen combination of factors that led to their assimilation rather than annihilation? Walking through Chan Chan today, one is struck by the silence. The adobe walls, faded reliefs, and empty plazas seem to hum with memory, inviting reflection on both human ingenuity and its limits. Every corner of the city embodies a story, yet many remain unreadable, locked in the materials and structures themselves. The Chimu achieved remarkable feats in agriculture, architecture, and artistry. Yet so much of their world remains obscured by time, weather, and the deliberate erasure of history. The mysteries of the Chimu civilization compel us to question what we truly know about the past. What drove them to create such monumental urban centers? How did they develop knowledge systems sophisticated enough to manipulate the environment, govern tens of thousands of people, and create lasting artistic and ritual traditions without written records? And perhaps most haunting of all, what wisdom, encoded in their city walls, ceramics, and metalwork, remains hidden beneath the sands of Peru, waiting for discovery. As the sun dips toward the Pacific, casting long shadows across the sprawling ruins, Chan Chan glows with a quiet, almost otherworldly brilliance. The wind rustles through the narrow alleys, carrying the faint echoes of a civilization that was both extraordinary and enigmatic. The Chimu left behind questions as enduring as the structures they built, reminding us that the past is never fully revealed, and that the most profound mysteries often reside not in what we have uncovered, but in what is still buried, waiting to be understood. From the sun-baked adobe ruins of Chan Chan, our journey now spans continents once more, carrying us across the Atlantic to the savannas and plateaus of central Nigeria. Here, amid gently rolling hills and red earth soil, the Nok civilization emerged over 2 millennia ago, leaving behind artifacts that continue to baffle and mesmerize. Imagine standing on the dusty terrain near the village of Nok, where fragments of terracotta sculptures are scattered across the surface. Weathered yet unmistakably human and animal, these statues capture faces, expressions, and postures with astonishing realism, frozen in time as if they had stories to tell. The wind stirs the earth and rustles through sparse trees, carrying whispers of a people whose achievements remain tantalizingly elusive. The Nok civilization thrived roughly between 1000 BCE and 300 CE, representing one of sub-Saharan Africa's earliest known complex societies. While little is known about their political structure, the sophistication of their art and technology is indisputable. They were among the first in West Africa to smelt iron, forging tools and weapons that shaped their environment and sustained their communities. Yet, despite these significant achievements, the full scope of their society remains mysterious. How did they develop iron smelting techniques independently at such an early date? And why have so few written or oral records survived to illuminate the social and cultural context of this remarkable people? Central to the Nok legacy are the terracotta sculptures for which the civilization is most famous. Ranging from small figurines to life-sized statues, these works display intricate detailing, elongated faces, elaborate hairstyles, and expressive postures that convey individuality, emotion, and perhaps even spiritual significance. Some figures appear to depict daily life, while others seem to represent ritual or ceremonial practices. What did these images mean to the Nok people? Were they objects of veneration, ancestral portraits, or symbolic representations of myths and cosmology? Scholars have speculated, yet no definitive explanation has been found, leaving the sculptures suspended between history and mystery. The technical skill evident in these sculptures is remarkable. The terracotta pieces were fired at high temperatures, an achievement suggesting precise control over kilns and materials. How did a society with no known writing system or complex architecture develop such refined techniques, producing artworks that have endured for over 2,000 years? Could these artifacts hold encoded knowledge about social hierarchy, spiritual beliefs, or even lost technologies? The very act of creating these statues implies both sophisticated cognition and cultural intentionality, yet much of their context remains veiled in uncertainty. Beyond their artistry, the Nok are notable for their early mastery of ironworking. Archaeological sites reveal furnaces and slag deposits, indicating that they smelted and forged iron on a significant scale. This technology would have transformed their society, enabling improved agriculture, hunting, and defense. Yet questions remain. How did knowledge of ironworking emerge in this region so early? Was it independently discovered or transmitted through trade or migration? And what cultural practices, social structures, or belief systems supported the development and retention of such transformative skills? Equally compelling is the mystery of the Nok civilization's disappearance. Around 300 CE, Nok culture seems to have vanished from the archaeological record. Unlike other civilizations that leave clear traces of conquest, migration, or assimilation, the Nok decline is subtle and enigmatic. Did environmental changes, disease, or internal social shifts contribute to their gradual disappearance? Or might their descendants have continued to influence subsequent West African cultures, leaving only hints of their presence in oral traditions, artistic motifs, or metallurgical practices? Even today, as excavations continue, the Nok raise more questions than answers. New finds occasionally reveal previously unknown terracotta forms, miniature artifacts, and evidence of domestic or ritual activity, hinting at a society far richer and more complex than earlier scholars imagined. Each discovery suggests that the Nok were not merely isolated artisans or ironworkers, but participants in a dynamic, evolving culture with connections to surrounding regions. How extensive were their trade networks? What beliefs shaped their daily and spiritual lives? And why does so much remain obscured by the passage of time? Walking across the hills and plains where the Nok once thrived, one is struck by the quiet power of the artifacts scattered among the soil. Each figure, fragment, and furnace tells a story, yet their meanings remain tantalizingly out of reach. These remnants offer a glimpse into human ingenuity, a civilization capable of transforming raw earth into enduring art and iron tools, yet shrouded in layers of mystery. The Nok civilization challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about early societies in Africa and the broader world. Their advanced metallurgy, expressive terracotta art, and enduring influence hint at a culture whose sophistication rivals that of more widely studied ancient civilizations. And yet, for all that has been discovered, the most profound questions remain. What inspired the creation of these haunting sculptures? How did they develop knowledge that would shape generations long after their disappearance? And what secrets, buried beneath centuries of soil, forgotten in the rhythm of oral history, might still lie waiting to be uncovered, ready to expand our understanding of human history and ingenuity? As the sun sets over the red earth hills, casting long shadows across the archaeological sites, the wind lifts the dust and carries with it echoes of a civilization both brilliant and enigmatic. The Nok remain a silent presence, their terracotta faces staring across time, inviting us to wonder, to investigate, and to imagine the lives, thoughts, and knowledge of a people whose story is only partially revealed. The mystery persists, enduring as both a challenge and an invitation, reminding us that history often speaks most powerfully in whispers rather than declarations. From the red earth hills of central Nigeria, where the Nok left behind haunting terracotta faces and traces of early ironworking, our journey now crosses continents once again, to the sun-drenched island of Crete in the eastern Mediterranean. Here, perched along rugged coastlines and fertile plains, the Minoan civilization flourished in an era that predates classical Greece. Imagine walking through the ruins of Knossos at dawn. The first light touches frescoed walls of royal chambers, illuminating vibrant depictions of dolphins leaping through cerulean waves, bull-leaping athletes suspended in midair, and sacred rituals rendered with breathtaking fluidity. The air is heavy with history, and the scent of the Mediterranean carries whispers of a people whose society was simultaneously advanced, artistic, and profoundly enigmatic. The Minoans thrived between roughly 2600 and 1400 BCE, establishing a maritime culture that dominated trade and culture across the Aegean. Their cities were sophisticated, with multi-story palaces, complex plumbing systems, and labyrinthine layouts suggesting a high degree of planning and social organization. Yet despite the grandeur of their constructions and the vividness of their art, many aspects of Minoan life remain shrouded in mystery. How did they cultivate such technological and artistic prowess without leaving behind extensive written records, or at least texts fully understood by modern scholars? And what secrets of governance, ritual, or cosmology might still lie buried beneath the stones of Crete? The palaces themselves are marvels of architecture and engineering. Knossos, with its network of corridors, grand halls, and ceremonial spaces, seems designed both to impress and to conceal. Frescoes and painted columns suggest a society deeply attuned to symbolism, nature, and ritual. Bulls, sacred symbols throughout Minoan art, dominate many depictions, their presence both literal and metaphorical. Were these creatures central to religious ceremonies, metaphors for political power, or coded symbols in a culture whose beliefs we can only guess at today? The complexity of the palaces hints at a civilization that valued both order and secrecy, where every architectural choice may have carried layers of meaning. Minoan art offers equally compelling mysteries. Frescoes, pottery, and carved seals reveal scenes of everyday life, ritual practices, and mythic narratives, yet their full significance eludes us. The famous bull-leaping frescoes, for instance, depict acrobats vaulting over powerful animals in ways that suggest both ceremony and spectacle. Were these athletic feats purely ritualistic, or did they serve as metaphors for the human struggle against nature, chaos, or spiritual forces? And what might the choice of colors, poses, and symbols tell us about Minoan beliefs and societal hierarchies? The Minoans also appear to have possessed advanced knowledge of urban planning and environmental management. Palaces were equipped with drainage systems, sophisticated plumbing, and reservoirs that suggest both practical ingenuity and an understanding of hydraulic principles. Trade networks connected Crete with Egypt, the Levant, and the broader Aegean world, bringing exotic goods, ideas, and artistic influences. Yet, for all their sophistication, the Minoans seem to have left few written records that modern scholars can fully interpret. The linear script, which appears on administrative tablets and inscriptions, has resisted decipherment, leaving a civilization of immense complexity only partially understood through fragments and artifacts. Could these tablets conceal knowledge of governance, trade, religion, or science that remains inaccessible to us? The sudden decline of society adds another layer of intrigue. Around 1450 BCE, palaces were destroyed, many cities abandoned, and much of the island's material culture disrupted. The reasons remain debated. Natural disasters such as the Thera eruption, earthquakes, or tsunamis may have played a role. Internal social upheaval or invasion may have compounded the effects. Yet, despite widespread destruction, aspects of Minoan culture persisted and influenced subsequent Mycenaean societies. How much of their knowledge and artistic achievement was transmitted, transformed, or lost in the process? And what might still lie buried beneath the sands, waiting to reveal more about a civilization that seems both familiar and alien in its sophistication? Walking through the ruins of Knossos today, one is struck by the sense of deliberate intent encoded in every structure and artifact. Staircases twist and turn as if to guide the visitor along a prescribed path. Walls shimmer with vibrant pigments, and courtyards open onto vistas that suggest ceremonial observation or cosmic alignment. The Minoans appear to have merged practicality with artistry, spirituality with governance, in ways that modern observers can admire but only partially comprehend. Every artifact, from a carved seal to a frescoed wall, hints at a culture that understood symbolism, ritual, and perhaps even astronomy at levels that remain the subject of speculation. The mysteries of the Minoan civilization persist precisely because they resist full interpretation. They offer glimpses into human creativity, technical skill, and social organization, yet leave us questioning the motivations, beliefs, and knowledge systems that shaped their world. How did a maritime society achieve such artistic and technological brilliance? And why did so much of it vanish into history's shadow? Were the Minoans simply victims of natural disasters, or did forces of human conflict and societal transformation play a role? As the Mediterranean sun sets over Crete, casting long shadows across the palace ruins and the terraced hills beyond, it is easy to imagine the rhythms of Minoan life, the sound of waves against cliffs, the chants of ritual participants, the hum of artisans at work. Yet, despite these vivid echoes, so much remains unanswered. What secrets remain hidden beneath layers of plaster, stone, and soil? What wisdom, artistry, and knowledge of the Minoans has been lost to time, waiting for discovery? The questions linger, silent yet insistent, inviting us to ponder a civilization whose brilliance continues to captivate and confound, even millennia after its decline. From the sun-drenched island of Crete, where the Minoans left behind palaces adorned with dolphins, bulls, and ritual scenes that continue to mystify us, our journey now crosses oceans and millennia once again, this time to the vast river valleys of North America. Here, amid the forests and floodplains of the Mississippi and Ohio River basins, the Mississippian culture flourished, constructing monumental earthworks that speak of a civilization both sophisticated and enigmatic. Imagine standing atop Monk's Mound at Cahokia, the largest pre-Columbian earthwork north of Mexico. From this vantage, the surrounding landscape stretches in all directions, smaller mounds dotting the horizon, plazas once bustling with life, and the faint impressions of wooden palisades that enclose the city. The wind carries the echoes of thousands of inhabitants, their ceremonies, marketplaces, and daily rhythms whispering across the centuries. The Mississippian culture reached its peak between roughly 800 and 1600 CE, developing complex urban centers with sophisticated social hierarchies, trade networks, and ceremonial practices. Cahokia, their most prominent city, may have housed tens of thousands of people, rivaling contemporary European cities in size and organization. The scale of construction is astonishing. Mounds carefully shaped and aligned, plazas designed for ritual and civic gatherings, and causeways connecting various precincts. How did societies without metal tools or written language organize labor and resources on such a massive scale? And what ideas or beliefs motivated the creation of these enduring forms in earth and timber? Central to Mississippian life were the platform mounds, constructed layer by layer, each addition deliberate and precise. These mounds likely supported temples, elite residences, and public buildings, serving as both ceremonial and administrative centers. Yet their purpose is only partially understood. Were these mounds primarily political, designed to assert authority and structure society? Or did they serve a spiritual or cosmological function, aligning with celestial events or reflecting sacred landscapes? The precision of their construction suggests knowledge of planning, surveying, and engineering, but the symbolic meanings embedded within remain tantalizingly out of reach. Art and iconography provide another window into the Mississippian mind. Elaborate shell gorgets, copper ornaments, stone statues, and pottery depict powerful animals, supernatural beings, and abstract symbols whose interpretations remain debated. Some images suggest shamanic practices or spiritual journeys. Others hint at social hierarchies or historical events. How much of this imagery encoded religious knowledge, and how much was intended to communicate status or identity? And in a society without a formal writing system, how was knowledge transmitted and preserved across generations, ensuring continuity of tradition and skill? The Mississippians also built extensive trade networks, reaching from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, exchanging shells, copper, mica, and other materials. Such connections suggest a sophisticated understanding of geography, logistics, and social alliances. Yet, despite these networks and the scale of their cities, their collapse is enigmatic. By the time Europeans arrived, many of the largest centers had been abandoned, their mounds silent, their plazas empty. What caused this decline? Environmental stress, resource depletion, social upheaval, or disease may have played roles, but definitive explanations remain elusive. Could there have been factors lost to time, subtle political or spiritual shifts that shaped the course of history in ways archaeology has yet to reveal? Excavations have revealed evidence of ceremonial sacrifice, warfare, and elaborate burials, offering glimpses into the values and beliefs of the Mississippians. High-status individuals were interred with objects of symbolic and practical importance, often including materials obtained through long-distance trade. Some burials suggest ritualized practices, possibly linked to cosmology or cycles of power. Yet the meanings of these practices remain partially speculative. How were they connected to political authority, spiritual beliefs, or social cohesion? And what knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, or ritualistic, might have been embedded in these structures and practices? Now lost to time? Walking among the mounds today, the scale and precision of the constructions are arresting. The land itself seems inscribed with memory, as if every mound, plaza, and causeway carries encoded messages from a civilization whose achievements we are only beginning to understand. The alignment of the mounds, the rhythm of the layout, and the distribution of artifacts hint at complex governance and belief systems. Yet much remains hidden beneath the soil. What can we learn from the careful layering of earth, the positioning of ceremonial spaces, and the symbolic language of Mississippian art? The Mississippian culture challenges us to reconsider assumptions about the sophistication of pre-Columbian societies in North America. Their urban planning, engineering, trade networks, and ritual practices suggest a civilization capable of immense coordination, creativity, and long-term vision. And yet, for all their accomplishments, so many mysteries persist. What exactly motivated the construction of these massive mounds? How were religious, social, and political systems integrated in ways that supported such urban complexity? And what aspects of Mississippian knowledge and worldview remain buried, waiting to be uncovered through patient investigation and discovery? As the sun sets over Cahokia, casting long shadows across Monk's Mound and the surrounding plazas, the landscape seems alive with the presence of those who once lived here. The wind carries faint echoes of drums, voices, and footsteps, memories of a civilization both extraordinary and enigmatic. The Mississippians left a record in earth and artifact, yet much of their story remains untold, inviting us to wonder what secrets lie hidden beneath the soil. What knowledge, artistry, and understanding of the natural and spiritual worlds might still be waiting, patiently preserved, ready to illuminate the lives of a people whose influence shaped North America long before modern records began. From the sprawling river valleys of North America, where the Mississippians left behind monumental earthworks and ceremonial mounds, our journey returns once more to the rugged heights of the Andes. Here, shrouded in cloud forests that cling to steep mountainsides, the Chachapoyas civilization, often called the Cloud People, carved out a realm both remote and astonishing. Picture standing among the mist-laden cliffs near Calap, the largest fortress of this enigmatic society. Massive stone walls rise up to 20 meters, enclosing terraces and plazas that stretch for hundreds of meters. The air is thick with humidity, the scent of moss and wet earth pervasive, while the clouds drift below and above, rendering the landscape simultaneously ethereal and foreboding. It is a place that seems deliberately designed to confound the eye and test the resolve of any who would venture here, reflecting a culture as mysterious as the mountains themselves. The Chachapoyas thrived from roughly 900 to 1470 CE, predating their eventual conquest by the expanding Inca Empire. They built their settlements high in the cloud forests, where steep slopes, dense vegetation, and remote locations offered both protection and isolation. Their stone constructions, fortresses, ceremonial complexes, and round houses reveal remarkable architectural skill. Massive walls, carefully cut stones, and intricate layouts suggest a society capable of extraordinary organization and labor coordination. Yet, for all the technical mastery on display, little is known about the cultural, spiritual, or political systems that guided their construction. How did the Chachapoyas adapt to such an inhospitable environment, and what beliefs or imperatives drove them to transform jagged cliffs into thriving urban centers? Calap, often referred to as the Machu Picchu of the North, is perhaps the most evocative testament to Chachapoya's ingenuity. Its fortified walls are punctuated by trapezoidal doors, and the interior is composed of hundreds of circular stone houses, carefully aligned and interconnected by narrow passageways. Were these structures purely residential, or did they serve additional ceremonial, defensive, or symbolic purposes? Some archaeologists suggest that the layout may reflect cosmological or astronomical principles. Yet the evidence remains inconclusive. How did the Chachapoyas encode meaning into their architecture? And what messages might these stone walls have preserved for generations? Equally compelling are the Chachapoyas' burial practices. The culture is known for its sarcophagi, carved stone coffins perched on cliffs or placed in remote caves, often containing mummies in seated positions. Many of these resting places are decorated with geometric patterns or effigies, hinting at beliefs about death, the afterlife, or ancestor veneration. Yet the reasoning behind the placement, design, and orientation of these tombs continues to puzzle researchers. Were these graves intended to protect the deceased, to mark territorial claims, or to serve as spiritual beacons visible across valleys and mountains? And what insights might they hold into a worldview that integrated humans, nature, and the divine in ways largely lost to time? The Chachapoyas were also skilled in ceramics, textiles, and metallurgy. Pottery fragments depict abstract designs and occasional figurative motifs, while textiles and small metal objects suggest complex craftsmanship and trade networks extending beyond the highlands. How did they acquire and transmit the knowledge necessary to produce such refined works, especially in a region so physically isolated? And to what extent did their art, tools, and ceremonial objects encode cultural narratives or esoteric knowledge, now obscured by centuries of conquest and environmental change? Despite the apparent sophistication of the Chachapoyas, their society ultimately fell to the Inca expansion in the 15th century. Yet even this conquest left many questions unanswered. Some researchers speculate that the Chachapoyas resisted fiercely, adapting their settlements and practices to the mountainous terrain in ways that prolonged their autonomy. Others suggest a degree of integration into the Inca Empire, though the specifics of political and cultural assimilation remain unclear. How did a civilization so remote and resilient maintain its identity for centuries in such a challenging environment? And what cultural, technological, or spiritual knowledge might have been lost in the process of conquest? Walking among Calap's terraces and towers today, one senses both the ingenuity and the deliberate mystery of the Chachapoyas. Every circular house, wall, and ceremonial structure suggests careful planning, symbolic intent, and profound knowledge of the mountainous landscape. Yet so much remains hidden: the meanings of their iconography, the motivations behind their architectural choices, and the secrets of their social and spiritual organization. Could the clouds that shroud these highlands have served not only as protection, but as a symbolic or ritual element, reinforcing a connection between the people, the mountains, and the divine? The Chachapoya civilization invites reflection on the ingenuity of societies that thrived in isolation, mastering both environment and material culture in ways that challenge modern assumptions. Their monumental architecture, funerary practices, and artistic achievements offer glimpses into a culture at once highly organized and deeply enigmatic. And yet, as with so many civilizations we have explored on this journey, the full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. What knowledge, traditions, or spiritual insights remain encoded in these cliffside fortresses and tombs? What secrets of human adaptation, creativity, and belief might still lie hidden in the clouds, waiting for discovery? As the mist rolls through the mountains at dusk, casting long shadows across stone walls and circular houses, the Chachapoyas seem to watch silently from their high perches. The wind carries faint echoes of life once lived, of rituals performed, and communities sustained in isolation. The mystery endures, reminding us that even in places that seem inaccessible, the past leaves traces that beckon the curious, the patient, and the observant. The cloud people may be gone, yet their world, shrouded in mist and stone, continues to challenge and captivate, inviting us to wonder what still remains hidden among the peaks and valleys of the Andes. From the mist-shrouded peaks of the Andes, where the Chachapoyas, known as the Cloud People, crafted cliffside fortresses and perched tombs, our journey now sweeps across continents and centuries to the vast expanses of Eurasia. Here, across steppes, river valleys, and remote highlands, evidence points to a culture whose scale, ambition, and artifacts have sparked both fascination and debate: the Tartarian culture. Imagine approaching the ruins scattered across regions of Eastern Europe and Siberia, where massive brick foundations, geometric layouts, and towering structures rise against the horizon. The air carries a chill from distant plains and forests, and the landscape seems to hum with the echoes of a civilization whose traces are tantalizingly visible yet frustratingly incomplete. The so-called Tartarian culture is known primarily through archaeological remains attributed to an advanced prehistoric society, often predating written history in Eurasia. Enormous brick constructions, sometimes referred to as Tartarian megastructures, suggest organized urban planning on a scale that challenges conventional timelines. Walls several meters thick, expansive terraces, and precise geometric layouts hint at engineering skill and social coordination far beyond what is commonly assumed for the eras in which these structures were constructed. Yet the origins, purposes, and extent of this culture remain largely obscure. Who were the people capable of such feats, and what knowledge guided the construction of these monumental sites? Some of the most compelling evidence comes from architectural remnants found across multiple regions. Rectangular and circular foundations, sometimes aligned with celestial points or topographical features, suggest deliberate planning and potential ritual or astronomical significance. The bricks themselves, unusually uniform and durable, raise further questions. How were such materials manufactured with the technology of the time, and what techniques allowed for such precision? The structures evoke a civilization with both technical mastery and aesthetic sensibility, yet one whose social, political, and spiritual systems remain largely hidden from modern inquiry. Artifacts discovered in association with Tartarian sites add layers of intrigue. Tools, pottery, and enigmatic symbols hint at a culture with advanced metallurgy, craft specialization, and symbolic communication. Some researchers propose that these objects indicate trade networks, ritual practices, or even proto-writing systems. Yet the fragmentary nature of the evidence fuels speculation. Were these items utilitarian, ceremonial, or markers of status? Could these scattered clues reveal a worldview as sophisticated as the physical constructions themselves? Or are we glimpsing only fragments of a much larger and complex society? The sheer scale of certain Tartarian structures is particularly striking. Terraces stretching hundreds of meters, walls thick enough to support enormous weight, and layouts suggesting centralized planning all imply a society capable of coordinating large workforces over extended periods. How could such organizational capacity exist without the written administrative systems we typically associate with advanced civilizations? And what social, economic, or spiritual structures might have enabled such collaboration across vast distances and difficult terrain? Some researchers have proposed intriguing, if controversial, theories about the Tartarian culture. Speculative interpretations suggest that these civilizations might have been technologically or socially more advanced than previously thought, perhaps leaving a legacy erased by climate events, conquest, or natural disasters. Others highlight possible connections to later Eurasian cultures, suggesting that elements of Tartarian knowledge, architectural techniques, urban planning principles, or symbolic systems may have been absorbed or repurposed by successor societies. Could these remnants represent the tip of an ancient iceberg, with knowledge and achievements hidden beneath layers of earth and centuries of historical oversight? Yet the Tartarian culture remains frustratingly elusive. Unlike civilizations with extensive written records, Tartarian sites speak only through their stones, bricks, and fragmented artifacts. They challenge assumptions about technological development, societal complexity, and the evolution of urban planning. How did these people manipulate materials, labor, and terrain to create such enduring structures? What knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, or spiritual, was encoded in their designs? And why does so much of their story remain hidden, obscured by time, erosion, and the gaps in the historical record? Walking among these ruins today, one is struck by the sense of deliberate intent in every brick and foundation. The alignments, scale, and precision of construction suggest intelligence, planning, and perhaps even ceremonial or cosmological purpose. Yet there is also an enduring mystery. No inscriptions, no comprehensive records, no surviving oral histories fully explain the motivations or societal frameworks behind these feats. Each site seems to pose more questions than it answers, inviting contemplation of the capabilities of ancient peoples and the fragility of human memory over millennia. The Tartarian culture, much like the civilizations we have explored before, challenges modern perceptions of history. It hints at a world in which knowledge, technology, and social organization may have existed in forms now lost, reminding us that the human story is far richer and more complex than surviving evidence alone can reveal. And yet, for all the stone, brick, and remnants of human endeavor, a profound mystery endures. What truths about the Tartarians, their knowledge, and their civilization remain hidden, waiting beneath the surface to illuminate a past that is only partially visible to us today? As the Eurasian sun sets over the plains and forests, casting long shadows across massive ruins. The silent walls of these ancient structures seem to watch across the centuries. The wind whispers through broken columns, terraces, and scattered bricks, carrying echoes of human ambition, ingenuity, and the mysteries of a society that may have once been far more advanced than we imagine. The Tartarians remain a shadow of history, a civilization glimpsed through fragments, yet still capable of inspiring awe, curiosity, and profound questions about what humanity has accomplished and what it may still discover in the ruins of time. From the vast plains and monumental ruins of Eurasia, where the Tartarian culture once left its enigmatic marks, our journey now returns to the red rock cliffs and mesas of the American Southwest. The Anasazi, or ancestral Puebloans, constructed settlements that continue to puzzle, fascinate, and inspire awe. Imagine standing at the edge of a sheer cliff face in Chaco Canyon, sunlight slicing across the sandstone, casting long shadows over terrace structures and ceremonial kivas. The wind carries a faint dry scent of desert sage and dust, and the silence is broken only by the occasional call of a distant bird, as if the landscape itself preserves the memory of a people who once thrived here in extraordinary isolation. The Anasazi flourished roughly between 100 CE and 1600 CE, leaving behind vast complexes such as Pueblo Bonito, with its hundreds of interconnected rooms and expansive ceremonial plazas. Their settlements were built with meticulous precision, often integrated seamlessly into the cliffs themselves. Multi-story stone and adobe dwellings cling to canyon walls, accessible only by narrow ledges or ladders, suggesting both ingenuity and deliberate planning. How did these communities coordinate construction on such a scale in the harsh, arid environment of the Southwest? And what social, spiritual, or environmental imperatives guided the placement and design of these monumental sites? Central to Anasazi life were kivas, circular subterranean ceremonial chambers that served as focal points for ritual, governance, and community gathering. The alignment of certain kivas with solar, lunar, and stellar events suggests a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, implying that observation of the heavens played a central role in both agriculture and ritual life. Yet the full scope of Anasazi cosmology remains tantalizingly elusive. What stories, beliefs, and knowledge were encoded in these chambers? How did the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars inform their rituals, social structure, and worldview? The engineering feats of the Anasazi are equally compelling. Stone masonry demonstrates remarkable skill, with precisely cut blocks fitted together without mortar in many cases, and multi-story structures that have endured for centuries despite environmental challenges. Complex water management systems, channels, reservoirs, and cisterns allowed them to thrive in an environment that could be unforgiving, transforming arid landscapes into sustainable settlements. How did they develop such sophisticated hydraulic knowledge, and what lessons about adaptation, survival, and planning might be hidden in these systems? Artifacts found throughout Anasazi sites deepen the mystery. Pottery decorated with intricate geometric patterns, woven textiles, stone tools, and ceremonial objects reveal a culture attentive to both daily life and ritual life and spiritual expression. Yet many items are enigmatic, hinting at social hierarchies, ritual practices, and symbolic languages that we can only partially interpret. How were these objects used? Do they encode information about trade, cosmology, or ancestral memory that is now lost to us? And how did such a culture maintain cohesion across the broad and often isolated regions they inhabited? One of the most perplexing aspects of the Anasazi story is their sudden departure from many of their major settlements around the late 13th century. Entire complexes were abandoned, leaving behind tools, pottery, and even food stores. The reasons for this migration remain debated. Droughts, resource depletion, social upheaval, or conflicts may have contributed, yet no single explanation fully accounts for the widespread and seemingly coordinated exodus. How did a civilization so attuned to its environment and so adept at survival suddenly disperse across the landscape? Could there have been unseen pressures, cultural, spiritual, or climatic, that drove this movement, leaving only stone structures and artifacts to speak of their former presence? Walking through the ruins of Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, or Canyon de Chelly today, one is struck by both the scale of human ambition and the mysteries left behind. The dwellings, ceremonial spaces, and artifacts speak of a people who understood architecture, astronomy, and engineering at levels remarkable for their time, yet whose full narrative remains incomplete. Each shadowed kiva, sunlit room, and carved stone seems to invite questions rather than offer answers. What rituals filled these chambers? What governance and social organization sustained these settlements? And what knowledge, encoded in their architecture and artifacts, might still elude modern understanding? The Anasazi civilization challenges conventional notions of what prehistoric societies in North America were capable of achieving. Their complex social structures, architectural sophistication, and astronomical insights suggest a culture of remarkable intelligence, creativity, and adaptability. Yet the lingering mystery, the sudden abandonment, the enduring secrets of kivas, and the hidden meanings within artifacts reminds us that history is often fragmented, leaving tantalizing glimpses of knowledge and achievement for those patient enough to look. As the sun sets over the canyons, casting fiery orange and deep violet shadows across the cliff faces and terraces, the Anasazi ruins seem almost alive, silent witnesses to the lives, rituals, and aspirations of a vanished people. The wind moves through deserted rooms and ceremonial spaces, carrying echoes of footsteps long gone, of gatherings and ceremonies that shaped daily life. And while much remains unknown, the Anasazi invite us to wonder, to explore, and to consider what other secrets lie buried in the cliffs, mesas, and canyons of the Southwest, secrets that may yet reveal the depth, ingenuity, and complexity of a civilization that continues to captivate our imagination. From the sun-baked mesas and cliff dwellings of the American Southwest, where the Anasazi left behind enigmatic stone cities and ceremonial kivas, our journey now turns to the windswept plains and river valleys of southern Iberia. Here, along the Guadalquivir River and the coasts of what is now Spain, the Tartessos civilization flourished in a time that predates much of recorded European history. Imagine approaching the ancient riverbanks at twilight. The water glimmers faintly under a fading sun, reflecting the silhouettes of long-lost settlements and the faint traces of riverine trade routes. The landscape feels almost suspended in time, a liminal space where the line between history and legend blurs, hinting at a culture both rich and deeply mysterious. Tartessos is believed to have thrived between roughly 1200 and 550 BCE, representing one of the earliest known civilizations in the Iberian Peninsula. Ancient texts speak of a society wealthy in metals, particularly gold and silver, and skilled in trade, agriculture, and craftsmanship. Yet, despite these references, the physical and archaeological evidence of Tartessos is scarce, leaving much to speculation. How could a civilization so influential in trade and metallurgy leave behind so few tangible remnants? And what secrets of their society, technology, and worldview remain buried beneath the sediment of time? The accounts of Tartessos from Greek and Roman writers are tantalizing yet cryptic. They describe cities of great wealth, rulers of legendary wisdom, and commerce stretching across the Mediterranean. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of fortified settlements, mineral extraction sites, and imported goods, hinting at a civilization that engaged in extensive trade networks. Yet the exact locations, urban layouts, and social structures remain largely unknown. Could the wealth and influence of Tartessos have been sufficient to shape early Mediterranean history, even if the physical traces have largely vanished? And what might these lost cities reveal about early European civilization, cultural exchange, and human ingenuity? One of the most compelling aspects of Tartessos is its reputation as a center of metallurgy. Gold, silver, and tin were not only abundant but apparently worked with remarkable skill, yielding jewelry, ceremonial objects, and tools. These artifacts suggest a people with sophisticated techniques and aesthetic sensibilities, capable of transforming raw materials into objects of both utility and beauty. Yet the archaeological record is frustratingly incomplete. Were these skills developed independently or influenced by traders and craftsmen from the Eastern Mediterranean? And what role did metallurgy play in their social and life, and in maintaining their legendary wealth and power? Tartessos also occupies a liminal space between history and myth. Some accounts speak of kings with knowledge of astrology and divination, or cities that vanished beneath rivers and marshlands, swallowed by time and water. Were these stories allegorical, or could they reflect environmental changes, floods, or other natural phenomena that reshaped the landscape and erased physical evidence? Could some of the legends, passed down through Greek and Roman historians, contain kernels of truth waiting to be uncovered by careful excavation and interpretation? Archaeological discoveries have offered tantalizing glimpses into Tartessian culture. Fortified settlements, ceramic fragments, and traces of irrigation indicate organized urban planning, agriculture, and social coordination. Decorative motifs and imported goods suggest a sophisticated aesthetic sense and connections across the Mediterranean. Yet the civilization's disappearance remains one of the most perplexing mysteries of ancient Europe. Did environmental shifts, political upheaval, or external invasion cause the collapse of Tartessos? Or was it a more gradual decline into obscurity? And what cultural knowledge, technological innovations, or artistic traditions were lost along with it? The enigma of Tartessos is further amplified by the lack of written records. While inscriptions in the Tartessian script have been found, they remain only partially deciphered, leaving the language and its content largely mysterious. What insights might these inscriptions hold regarding trade, governance, religious practice, or social hierarchy? And could further discoveries of text, art, or architecture radically alter our understanding of early European civilizations? Walking along the riverbanks or through the remains of ancient settlements today, one senses the echo of a civilization both powerful and elusive. Every fragment of pottery, every trace of metallurgy, every faint outline of a building raises questions about human ingenuity, adaptation, and ambition. The wealth described in ancient accounts seems almost tangible. Yet the culture itself slips through the fingers of history, known more through legend than through tangible evidence. How does a civilization of such apparent significance leave so little behind, and what other secrets might lie buried beneath the Guadalquivir and surrounding plains, waiting for discovery? Tartessos challenges modern assumptions about the development of civilization in Europe. It suggests a society capable of complex trade, metallurgy, and organization, yet one that remains largely invisible to the archaeological record. And it reminds us that much of history exists in the gaps between legend and fact, between fragmentary artifacts and vanished cities, inviting careful investigation, reflection, and imagination. As the sun sinks below the horizon, casting long shadows over the ancient river valley, the landscape seems to hold its breath. The whisper of water, the rustle of reeds, and the glint of metal fragments in the soil all hint at human lives, achievements, and mysteries now largely lost to time. Tartessos remains a civilization of shadows and whispers, beckoning us to explore, to question, and to consider what else might be hidden beneath the surface. Knowledge, wealth, and stories that may yet illuminate one of the most enigmatic chapters in the history of the ancient world. From the golden plains and river valleys of southern Iberia, where the Tartessos civilization left behind whispers of wealth, legend, and vanished cities, our journey now crosses the continent once more, this time to the rolling hills and fertile river banks of southeastern Europe. Here, along the banks of the Danube in what is now Serbia, the Vinca culture emerged thousands of years ago, creating settlements, symbols, and artifacts that continue to intrigue archaeologists and historians alike. Picture standing on a gentle slope overlooking a Vinca settlement, the earth dotted with the remains of long-abandoned houses, pits once filled with grain, and fragments of pottery catching the afternoon light. The air is thick with the scent of damp soil and river water, and the quiet seems almost intentional, as if the land itself guards the secrets of a civilization that flourished long before the rise of written history. The Vinca culture thrived roughly between 5,700 and 4,500 BCE, making it one of Europe's earliest known complex societies. Unlike the monumental constructions of Tartessos or the cliff dwellings of the Anasazi, Vinca settlements were modest in scale but remarkable in organization. Houses were often rectangular and constructed with wattle and daub techniques, streets were laid out with apparent planning, and storage pits suggest advanced agricultural practices. Yet even in these seemingly simple villages, layers of mystery accumulate. How did a pre-writing society achieve such social coordination and technical skill? And what ideas or belief systems guided their daily lives, their crafts, and their rituals? Perhaps the most enigmatic aspect of Vinca culture lies in its artifacts, particularly the symbols etched into pottery, figurines, and clay tablets. These markings, collectively known as the Vinca script, remain undeciphered, leaving the content and purpose of their writing, or proto-writing, open to speculation. Were these symbols purely decorative, or did they encode information about trade, religion, or governance? Could they represent one of the earliest attempts at written communication in human history, a system lost to time before it could evolve into full literacy? Each artifact offers a tantalizing glimpse into an intellectual life that is only partially visible, a shadow of thought captured in clay. Equally compelling are the Vinca figurines, small clay figures, often depicting humans or hybrid human-animal forms. Some appear abstract, others surprisingly detailed, with stylized faces, elaborate hairdos, or intricate markings. Their exact purpose remains uncertain. Were they religious icons, representations of ancestors, or symbols used in social or ritual contexts? Could they reflect a spiritual cosmology, a belief system that connected humans to nature, fertility, or the cycles of life and death? The figurines' consistent stylization across vast regions suggests shared cultural norms and ideas, hinting at a network of knowledge and practice that extended far beyond individual villages. The Vinca people also demonstrate remarkable technological and artistic sophistication. Agricultural practices suggest systematic cultivation of grains, legumes, and livestock management, allowing settlements to thrive and sustain relatively dense populations for the time. How did these early Europeans develop such refined technical and artistic skills? And what knowledge lost to the millennia supported the growth of their settlements, social structures, and cultural traditions? Trade and connectivity appear to have played a significant role in Vinca society. Obsidian, seashells, and other non-local materials found at Vinca sites indicate networks that stretched hundreds of kilometers across Europe, facilitating exchange of goods, ideas, and perhaps even symbolic systems. How did these communities coordinate trade and interaction over such distances without the written records that later civilizations relied upon? And what ideas, technologies, or religious beliefs might have traveled along these networks, influencing societies far beyond the Danube Valley? The decline of the Vinca culture around 4500 BCE adds another layer of intrigue. Settlements were gradually abandoned, and the once widespread Vinca symbols fade from the archaeological record. What caused this transformation? Was it environmental change, social upheaval, migration, or disease? Or might it have been a more subtle cultural shift, in which knowledge and practice were absorbed into emerging societies, leaving only traces of their existence behind? The absence of definitive answers deepens the mystery, reminding us that even early European civilizations are capable of vanishing almost entirely, leaving questions in place of histories. Walking among the remains of Vinca settlements today, one is struck by the duality of simplicity and sophistication. The earth mounds, fragments of clay, and rudimentary tools speak of everyday life, labor, and survival. Yet the presence of symbols, figurines, and carefully constructed houses suggests intellectual and artistic complexity, a society whose worldview extended beyond mere subsistence. Each artifact, each line etched into clay, invites reflection on the thoughts, beliefs, and achievements of a civilization whose voice has been largely silenced by time. The Vinca culture challenges modern assumptions about the early development of European societies. It suggests that long before the rise of monumental cities and written empires, communities could achieve social organization, technological skill, and symbolic expression of remarkable sophistication. Yet the lingering mysteries, the meaning of their symbols, the purpose of their figurines, and the causes of their decline remain unanswered. What knowledge, rituals, or wisdom might have existed in these communities that modern scholarship has only begun to glimpse? What remains hidden beneath the soil of Serbia, waiting to illuminate one of Europe's earliest and most enigmatic civilizations? As the sun dips behind the rolling hills, casting long shadows across the Danube Valley, the Vinca settlements seem to hold their secrets close. The wind whispers through the remnants of clay walls, over fields that once sustained life, and through the echoes of human endeavor frozen in symbols and figurines. The mystery endures, compelling us to consider what has been lost to time and what may still be uncovered, revealing the full depth and complexity of a culture that continues to captivate, puzzle, and inspire awe across millennia. From the rolling hills and fertile river valleys of southeastern Europe, where the Vinca culture etched enigmatic symbols into clay and built settlements that whisper of early European sophistication, our journey now extends eastward to the arid plains and oasis regions of Central Asia. Here, in the vast landscapes of what is now northern Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, the Bactrian-Margiana Archaeological Complex, or BMAC, emerged as a civilization whose achievements and mysteries continue to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. Imagine standing on the sun-baked terraces of one of its fortified settlements, the wind carrying dust from distant deserts, while the remains of mud brick walls, ceremonial structures, and irrigation channels stretch across the horizon. The silence is punctuated only by the faint rustle of dry reeds along ancient riverbeds, as if the land itself preserves the echoes of a people who once commanded both the earth and its resources with astonishing precision. The BMAC thrived between roughly 2300 and 1700 BCE, during a period of significant cultural and technological development across Eurasia. Unlike the monumental cities of Mesopotamia or the cliff dwellings of the Anasazi, BMAC settlements reveal a civilization that achieved urban planning, social stratification, and sophisticated craft production in relative isolation. Fortified towns were carefully laid out, with mud brick walls rising several meters high, enclosing plazas, workshops, and residential spaces. Irrigation systems channeled water from rivers to fields, supporting both agriculture and livestock. Yet, despite these achievements, the purpose and organization of many structures remain unclear. How did this society sustain itself in such an environment, and what social, religious, or political principles guided its construction and daily life? One of the most intriguing aspects of BMAC is its material culture. Archaeologists have uncovered intricately crafted jewelry, bronze tools, decorated ceramics, and elaborate stone seals, many adorned with symbols and motifs that defy easy interpretation. Some artifacts suggest far-reaching trade networks, connecting the complex to distant regions, from the Iranian plateau to the Indus Valley. How did these people acquire raw materials, maintain specialized craftsmanship, and transmit complex techniques without the extensive written records that other contemporary civilizations relied upon? And what stories, beliefs, or knowledge might these objects encode, waiting for interpretation across millennia? The fortified towns of BMAC reveal a society deeply concerned with both defense and ritual. Massive walls and bastions suggest the need for protection, perhaps against rival communities or nomadic incursions. At the same time, ceremonial complexes, altars, and ritual objects indicate a spiritual life rich in symbolism. Did religion and governance coexist within these spaces, guiding both societal cohesion and daily survival? Could some of the architectural choices reflect cosmological knowledge or sacred geometry, principles that informed the very layout of their cities? Equally compelling are the enigmatic burial sites associated with BMAC. Graves vary from simple pit burials to elaborate tombs, sometimes accompanied by precious artifacts, ceramics, and ritual objects. These findings hint at social stratification, spiritual beliefs, and perhaps ancestral veneration, Yet the meanings behind many burial practices remain elusive. Were these interments expressions of political power, spiritual devotion, or social identity? And how might they reflect a worldview that integrated human existence with the natural and supernatural worlds now largely lost to time? Trade and interaction seem to have played a vital role in BMAC society. Evidence of lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carnelian from India, and tin from Central Asia indicates that these communities were not isolated, but part of extensive exchange networks. How were these connections maintained across vast and challenging terrain, and what cultural, technological, or spiritual knowledge accompanied these commodities as they traveled? Could the BMAC have been a hub of innovation and cross-cultural exchange, influencing civilizations both near and far, yet leaving only fragments for us to decipher? The decline of BMAC around 1700 BCE adds to the mystery. Settlements were abandoned, trade networks disrupted, and monumental structures fell into ruin. Scholars debate the causes. Environmental change, resource depletion, invasions, or social collapse may all have played a role. Yet, no single explanation fully accounts for the disappearance of such a complex and resourceful civilization. What subtle factors might have undermined its stability? Could aspects of knowledge, craftsmanship, or ritual practice have persisted in successor cultures, hidden within traditions that survived long after the cities themselves vanished? Walking among the remains of BMAC settlements today, one senses both the ingenuity and the enigma of this civilization. Mud brick walls, fortifications, and terraces speak of human effort, planning, and adaptation, while artifacts hint at symbolic and intellectual sophistication. Every seal, every decorated ceramic, every carefully constructed wall invites questions rather than offering answers. What was the nature of their governance? How did they reconcile spiritual life with practical concerns? And what knowledge, astronomical, technological, or cultural, might still lie buried beneath the earth, waiting to illuminate the full story of a civilization whose legacy remains partially obscured? The Bactriamargiana archaeological complex challenges modern perceptions of early urban and technological development. It suggests a society capable of complex organization, craftsmanship, and long-distance exchange, yet one whose narrative is largely fragmented by time. And it reminds us that some of the most remarkable chapters in human history are written not in texts but in earth, brick, and artifact. An archaeology of silence that compels inquiry, reflection, and wonder. As the sun dips toward the horizon over the Central Asian plains, casting long shadows across mud brick walls and deserted streets, the BMAC settlements seem to watch in quiet patience. The wind carries faint whispers of life once lived, of ritual, labor, and commerce that shaped a civilization now largely hidden from view. And while much remains unexplained, the mysteries of Bactriamargiana beckon us to explore further, to seek understanding in the traces of human ingenuity, and to consider what other knowledge, innovation, or stories remain buried, waiting to be revealed. From the sun-baked plains and fortified settlements of Central Asia, where the Bactriamargiana archaeological complex once thrived with its mud brick fortresses, elaborate irrigation systems, and enigmatic artifacts, our journey now moves westward into the Levant. Here, along the fertile plains of modern-day Syria, the Nab-Atta Tell rises subtly from the landscape, a low mound, or tell, that conceals layers of human habitation accumulated over millennia. Imagine standing on the crest of this modest hill, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across its contours, the air tinged with the scent of dry earth and distant olive groves. Beneath your feet lies centuries of human endeavor, houses, streets, storage pits, and ceremonial structures, all buried beneath layers of soil and memory, waiting to reveal their secrets. The Nabata Tell is thought to have been occupied from the late Neolithic through the Bronze Age, making it a witness to thousands of years of human adaptation, trade, and cultural evolution. Excavations have uncovered evidence of urban planning, storage facilities, and fortifications, suggesting a society both resilient and organized. Yet, as with many ancient sites, the Tell holds more questions than answers. How did its inhabitants interact with neighboring cultures across the Levant, Mesopotamia, and Anatolia? What ideas, technologies, or rituals did they carry, and what stories of daily life remain hidden beneath layers of sediment? The material culture at Nabata Tell is striking in both its variety and its craftsmanship. Pottery fragments bear intricate patterns, sometimes geometric, sometimes abstract, hinting at symbolic or aesthetic considerations beyond mere utility. Tools fashioned from stone, bone, and early metals speak of technical skill and adaptation to the environment, while ornaments and personal items suggest a society attuned to identity, status, and perhaps spiritual expression. Yet the full meaning of these artifacts is elusive. Were they markers of trade, symbols of belief, or remnants of daily practice? And how much of their knowledge, mathematical, agricultural, or ritual, was encoded in objects now only partially preserved? The architecture of Nabata Tell further deepens the mystery. Excavations reveal multi-roomed houses, communal spaces, and fortifications built from mud brick and stone, sometimes arranged with apparent planning and symmetry. Some structures hint at ceremonial or ritual use, while others suggest practical functions for storage and habitation. How were these spaces organized socially? Did certain structures serve as administrative or religious centers? And what principles guided their construction? Pragmatism, symbolism, or a combination of both? Trade appears to have been a vital component of life at Nabata Tell. Archaeologists have identified imported materials, including obsidian, shells, and metal objects, suggesting long-distance exchange networks. How were these networks maintained in a landscape punctuated by deserts, rivers, and mountains? And what ideas, technologies, or cultural practices might have traveled along with these goods, subtly shaping the social and intellectual fabric of Nabata Tell's inhabitants? The Tell also presents tantalizing enigmas in its burial practices. Human remains, sometimes accompanied by grave goods, provide glimpses into social hierarchy, spiritual beliefs, and mortuary rituals. Yet much remains unexplained. Why were certain individuals buried with specific items, while others were not? Do the graves hint at ancestral veneration, social status, or ritual symbolism now lost to time? And what might these practices reveal about the relationship between the living and the dead, and the cultural memory of this ancient society? Perhaps the most compelling mystery of Nabata Tell lies in its long-term continuity and eventual transformation. Layers of occupation suggest a civilization capable of adapting to environmental change, social pressures, and regional interactions over centuries. Yet the reasons for the Tell's decline and the precise nature of its connections to neighboring civilizations remain uncertain. Was the abandonment gradual, a response to shifting rivers, climate change, or political upheaval? Or did more sudden events, conflict, migration, or disease, reshape the region, leaving Nabatetel as a silent witness to vanished societies? Walking across the surface of the mound today, one senses both the human effort preserved in the earth and the enduring mystery of lives long past. Each fragment of pottery, each uneven brick, and every depression in the soil speaks of people who labored, celebrated, traded, and died here, yet whose full stories are only partially recoverable. What rituals were performed in the courtyards? What dreams and fears guided their decisions, their architecture, their tools? And what knowledge, encoded in these buried layers, may still lie waiting to be unearthed? Nabatetel challenges assumptions about the early civilizations of the Levant. It demonstrates sophistication in urban planning, craftsmanship, and trade. Yet its mysteries remind us that the past is rarely fully accessible. Even in sites thoroughly studied, the layers of time obscure as much as they reveal, leaving archaeologists and historians to piece together narratives from fragments, conjecture, and careful observation. As the sun sets over the Syrian plains, casting golden light across the mound, the tell seems almost alive, a repository of human memory suspended in soil and stone. The wind carries echoes of footsteps along ancient streets, voices from homes long gone, and the silent work of generations shaping their environment. And while much remains unknown, Nabatetel beckons the curious, inviting us to consider what remains hidden beneath its layers. Knowledge, innovation, rituals, and stories that may yet illuminate the life of a civilization that once flourished and now waits quietly beneath the earth. From the fertile plains of Syria, where Nabatetel rises as a layered witness to millennia of settlement, trade, and ritual, our journey now moves across the Mediterranean Sea to a small but extraordinary archipelago, Malta. Here, amid sun-drenched limestone cliffs and rolling fields, lie the remnants of one of Europe's most enigmatic prehistoric cultures, the megalith builders of Malta. Imagine standing before the towering stones of Hagar Chim or Menajdra as the dawn light washes over them, casting long, mysterious shadows across the ancient temple floors. The air carries the scent of salt and earth, and the silence is profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind through scrub and grass, as if the stones themselves hold memories of ceremonies, gatherings, and knowledge long lost to time. The megalithic temples of Malta, constructed between 3600 and 2500 BCE, predate even the pyramids of Egypt and the Stonehenge complex in Britain. Their scale, precision, and sophistication are astonishing, particularly considering the small island communities that built them. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing tens of tons, were quarried, transported, and assembled with remarkable ingenuity. How did these early Maltese societies move and manipulate such immense stones without the wheel, draft animals, or modern machinery? What knowledge of physics, leverage, or collective labor organization must have guided their construction? Beyond the engineering marvel, the temple's design is equally puzzling. Many exhibit precise alignments with celestial events, the solstices and equinoxes, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. Within these stone chambers, altars, niches, and carvings suggest ritualistic and ceremonial use. Were these spaces used for communal gatherings, offerings to deities, or astronomical observation? And what beliefs or cosmologies inspired the builders to create structures so enduring, elaborate, and symbolically charged? Artifacts uncovered within these temples further deepen the mystery. Intricately carved figurines, often interpreted as fertility symbols, pottery decorated with geometric patterns, and ritual objects hint at a society attentive to spirituality, ritual, and possibly social hierarchy. Yet the precise meaning and use of many objects remain elusive. How did these items relate to the daily lives, beliefs, and ceremonies of the Maltese people? And what knowledge, ritual, astronomical, or societal, was embedded within their arrangement and design? The scale and uniformity of construction across multiple temple complexes suggest a level of social organization that is difficult to reconcile with the presumed small population of the islands at the time. Coordinating labor, planning large-scale projects, and sustaining communities capable of constructing multiple monumental sites would have required sophisticated social structures. How did these societies maintain cohesion and knowledge across generations? Could the temples have served as centers for not only ritual but also governance, education, or cultural continuity? Another intriguing aspect of Malta's megaliths is the complexity of their symbolic carvings. Spirals, concentric circles, and abstract motifs cover walls and altars, yet their meaning remains indecipherable. Were these signs a form of proto-writing, a symbolic language, or purely decorative expressions of cultural or spiritual identity? Could they encode astronomical knowledge, calendrical information, or rituals meant to guide the living and honor the dead? Each carving invites speculation, yet answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Equally compelling is the enduring mystery of the temple's disappearance. Around 2500 BCE, construction abruptly ceased and the island's monumental culture declined. Scholars speculate on possible causes: climate change, resource depletion, social upheaval. But no single explanation fully accounts for the sudden cessation of activity. What caused a society capable of monumental engineering and complex ritual to vanish, leaving behind silent temples as its only testimony? And what knowledge, lost along with the decline of this culture, might still lie buried beneath the stones or scattered across the island landscape? Walking among the surviving structures today, one is struck by the intimacy of human endeavor and the vastness of the unknown. Each stone block, each altar, and each carved spiral represents both labor and intention, yet their full purpose remains beyond our grasp. How did these ancient Maltese perceive the world around them? What ceremonies, celebrations, or observances took place within the shadowed recesses of these temples? And what secrets of engineering, astronomy, and ritual remain encoded within their enduring form, waiting for patient investigation to reveal them? The megalith builders of Malta challenge modern assumptions about prehistoric societies in remarkable ways. They demonstrate that even in small island communities, humans could conceive, organize, and execute monumental architecture that embodies technical skill, artistic expression, and spiritual or cosmological sophistication. Yet the enduring mysteries, unexplained alignments, undeciphered symbols, and sudden societal decline remind us that much of human history lies in shadows, visible only through fragments, stones, and echoes of activity long past. As the sun sets over Malta, casting a golden glow across the megaliths and illuminating the rugged coastline, the temples seem to exude a quiet presence. The wind carries faint whispers of ceremonies, chants, and communal life, as if the islands themselves guard the knowledge of a civilization that achieved remarkable feats and then quietly receded into obscurity. The mysteries of Malta's megaliths remain unsolved, beckoning us to look closer, to wonder, and to consider what other truths about human ingenuity, spiritual life, and lost knowledge may still lie hidden beneath these stones, waiting for those willing to uncover them. From the limestone cliffs and sunlit temples of Malta, where the megalith builders left behind structures that align with the heavens and whisper of long-lost ritual and knowledge, our journey now turns southeast across the arid deserts and rugged mountains of the Arabian Peninsula. Here, in the territory historically known as Arabia Petrea, the Nabateans carved a remarkable civilization into the sandstone cliffs, establishing trade networks, cities, and cultural practices that would leave an indelible mark on history. Picture walking through the narrow gorge of Petra, the Rose City, with its warm sandstone walls towering above, etched with facades that catch the early morning light. The air is dry, scented faintly with dust and resin, and the silence is punctuated by the distant call of birds and the echo of footsteps against stone, as if the canyon itself holds the secrets of a people who transformed a harsh landscape into a thriving crossroads of commerce and culture. The Nabateans flourished between roughly the 4th century BCE and the 2nd century CE, establishing a society centered on trade, water management, and architectural ingenuity. Their settlements, most famously Petra, reveal an advanced understanding of engineering and urban planning, particularly in an environment that few civilizations could have made hospitable. How did a people in such an arid and rugged region develop the hydraulic knowledge to channel water from seasonal rains into reservoirs, cisterns, and underground channels that sustained entire cities? What techniques, observations, or collective knowledge allowed them to thrive where others might have failed? Beyond their practical ingenuity, the Nabateans left behind a landscape sculpted with extraordinary artistic and symbolic ambition. Monumental facades carved directly into cliffs, temples, tombs, and civic buildings demonstrate not only technical skill but also a sense of aesthetic and spiritual sophistication. Some structures suggest astronomical alignments or ritual significance, raising questions about the cosmological beliefs of the Nabateans. Were these architectural choices purely functional, or did they encode meaning, observation of the heavens, or social hierarchy? What rituals, ceremonies, or gatherings might have taken place within these carved spaces? And how did they reflect the worldview of a society deeply attuned to both environment and symbolism? Trade was the lifeblood of Nabatean civilization. Positioned at the crossroads of major caravan routes, their cities facilitated the exchange of spices, incense, textiles, metals, and other luxury goods from Arabia, the Levant, and beyond. Their ability to dominate trade networks allowed them to amass wealth, influence, and cultural capital, yet much about their commercial organization remains enigmatic. How did they coordinate long-distance trade over desert routes, often hundreds of kilometers apart, without written administrative systems as elaborate as those in contemporary empires? And what knowledge of geography, negotiation, and resource management allowed them to maintain control over such extensive and challenging trade networks? The Nabateans' material culture offers additional glimpses into their sophistication and mystery. Pottery, inscriptions, coinage, and religious artifacts reveal a society with distinctive artistic expression, ritual practices, and cultural identity. Some inscriptions reference deities, trade transactions, or funerary rites, Yet their meanings often remain partially obscure, leaving tantalizing questions about religious practice, political organization, and societal norms. How did symbolism, language, and iconography intertwine to shape their identity and maintain cohesion across desert cities? And what knowledge, once integral to Nabatean life, has been lost to the sands of time? Perhaps the most enigmatic aspect of Nabatean civilization is the apparent disappearance of its cultural and political autonomy, following Roman annexation in the early 2nd century CE. Petra, once a thriving hub of trade and administration, gradually declined, its elaborate facades slowly reclaimed by nature and desert sands. Was this decline a result of economic shifts, environmental pressures, political absorption, or a combination of factors? And what traces of Nabatean knowledge, architectural, hydraulic, or commercial, were absorbed by neighboring cultures, influencing the Mediterranean and Near Eastern worlds long after the society itself receded from prominence? Walking through Petra or other Nabatean sites today, one is struck by both the visible mastery and the enduring mysteries of this civilization. Every carved facade, every cistern, every inscription suggests ingenuity, foresight, and cultural sophistication. Yet questions abound. How much of their social, religious, or technical knowledge has vanished entirely? What secrets of desert survival, water management, or trade logistics remain hidden beneath the stone and sand? And how did a relatively small population achieve such enduring influence, leaving monuments that continue to inspire awe and curiosity millennia later? The Nabateans challenge modern assumptions about desert civilizations. They demonstrate that even in harsh and unforgiving environments, human ingenuity, cultural complexity, and spiritual ambition can flourish. Yet the mysteries surrounding their rise, technological prowess, and eventual decline remind us that much of human history exists in partial shadows, accessible only through careful observation, excavation, and reflection. As the sun dips behind Petra's rose-colored cliffs, casting long shadows through the narrow gorges and illuminating intricate carvings, the city seems almost alive, holding its secrets in silence. The wind whispers through the empty streets and tombs, carrying echoes of bustling marketplaces, ritual ceremonies, and caravans that traversed the desert long ago. The Nabateans endure as both a testament to human ingenuity and a riddle of the past, inviting us to explore, question, and wonder. What other knowledge, technology, and stories lie hidden in the rocks and sands of Arabia Petraea, waiting to illuminate one of history's most remarkable civilizations? From the rose-colored cliffs and desert caravan routes of Arabia Petraea, where the Nabateans carved cities into stone and built a civilization that thrived on trade, ingenuity, and the quiet mastery of harsh landscapes, our journey now sweeps south along the Nile River to the lands of what is today Sudan. Here, amidst sun-scorched plains, shifting sands, and the life-giving waters of the Nile, the kingdom of Kush rose as a powerful and enduring civilization, its monuments and burial sites echoing with stories of wealth, conquest, and mystery. Imagine standing on the edge of the ancient city of Meroe, gazing across countless pyramids rising from the desert like silent sentinels. The wind carries the scent of dry earth, the faint rustle of palm fronds along the river, and a sense of time compressed, layers of human achievement buried beneath centuries of sand and sun. The kingdom of Kush flourished for over 1,000 years, roughly between 1070 BCE and 350 CE, exerting influence over Nubia, Egypt, and the broader Nile Valley. Its rulers, often referred to as the Black Pharaohs in Egyptian texts, commanded not only military power but also a complex society capable of urban planning, monumental architecture, and intricate trade networks. Kushite cities such as Napata and Meroe were centers of political authority, religious devotion, and artistic production. Yet much about their daily life, governance, and cultural beliefs remains elusive. How did a civilization situated along the harsh banks of the Nile develop the capacity to rival Egypt, constructing pyramids, temples, and palaces with precision and elegance? The architectural achievements of Kush are extraordinary, particularly the pyramids of Meroe. Though smaller than their Egyptian counterparts, they are far more numerous, with hundreds of tombs aligned along vast necropolises. Each pyramid holds the remains of a ruler, accompanied by jewelry, ceremonial items, and inscriptions in the Meroitic script, a writing system that, despite decades of study, remains only partially deciphered. What secrets might these inscriptions hold about the political, religious, and social structures of Kush? Could they reveal lost knowledge about governance, cosmology, or even scientific understanding, encoded in symbols still beyond our full comprehension? Art and craftsmanship also illuminate the sophistication of Kushite culture. Sculptures, pottery, jewelry, and intricate reliefs depict rulers, deities, and ceremonial practices, combining indigenous Nubian styles with influences from Egypt, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Yet many artifacts retain an enigmatic quality: ceremonial masks, mysterious amulets, and depictions of animals whose symbolic significance is unclear. How did Kushite artisans convey meaning through these objects, and what spiritual or cultural ideas might have been lost when knowledge passed only through oral tradition or cryptic inscriptions? The kingdom of Kush was also a center of trade and resource extraction. Gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic animals moved along the Nile and across the Red Sea, connecting Kush to Mediterranean and sub-Saharan networks. How were these trade networks managed, and what logistical, navigational, or economic knowledge enabled Kush to dominate both local and long-distance commerce? Could there have been technological or organizational insights within Kushite society that allowed such influence in a region defined by deserts, cataracts, and vast distances? Religion and ritual were central to Kushite life. Temples dedicated to deities like Ammonius and Epidmac, and elaborate mortuary practices, suggest a complex spiritual worldview. The alignment of pyramids, the placement of temples, and the iconography on artifacts hint at cosmological knowledge intertwined with political authority, but many aspects remain unexplained. Did the Kushites develop unique astronomical, calendrical, or ritual systems now lost to history? How did religion reinforce social cohesion, leadership, and cultural continuity across centuries? The rise and fall of Kush remains subjects of scholarly inquiry and intrigue. Egyptian invasions, internal political shifts, and the expansion of rival empires shaped its history. Yet the civilization endured for over a millennium. Its decline in the 4th century CE left many questions unanswered. Were environmental changes along the Nile, shifts in trade routes, or internal political fragmentation the ultimate cause? And what knowledge, stories, or cultural practices were lost as the cities fell silent, and the pyramids began to crumble under the relentless desert sun? Walking among the ruins of Meroe today, one is struck by the simultaneous grandeur and mystery of Kush. Each pyramid, each temple, Each intricately carved relief bears witness to human ingenuity and ambition, yet also conceals unanswered questions. What daily lives unfolded behind the monumental facades? How were these complex cities organized, defended, and sustained over centuries? And what truths about leadership, technology, and spiritual understanding lie buried beneath sand, stone, and time itself? The Kingdom of Kush challenges assumptions about ancient African civilizations. It demonstrates that complexity, cultural richness, and architectural mastery were not confined to the Nile of Egypt alone, but extended deep into Nubia, leaving of ingenuity and enigma. And it reminds us that much of history exists in layers, some preserved in stone, some in artifacts, and some in mysteries still hidden beneath the desert floor. As the sun sets over the Sudanese desert, casting long shadows across pyramids, temples, and the meandering Nile, the ruins of Kush exude an aura of silent authority. The wind seems to carry whispers of ceremonies, royal decrees, and the quiet hum of life long past. The Kingdom of Kush stands as both a testament to human achievement and a challenge to our understanding. What other knowledge, innovation, and cultural depth remain buried beneath the sands, waiting to illuminate one of history's most enigmatic civilizations? From the sun-drenched pyramids and Nile-adjacent cities of Kush, where kings once ruled and monumental architecture bore witness to human ingenuity and spiritual devotion, our journey now sweeps across continents to the humid, fertile lowlands of Mesoamerica. Here, in what is today the Gulf Coast of Mexico, lies the cradle of one of the New World's earliest complex societies, the Olmec civilization. Imagine stepping into a dense tropical forest, the air thick with humidity and the scent of wet earth and vegetation, the sound of distant rivers winding through the landscape. Amid the jungle, massive stone heads, each several tons in weight, rise from the undergrowth, their enigmatic expressions staring silently across time. These colossal sculptures, alongside ceremonial mounds and plazas, signal a culture both sophisticated and mysterious, one whose influence would ripple across the Americas for centuries. The Olmec civilization thrived between approximately 1600 and 400 BCE, establishing cities like San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes. These were not mere villages, but urban centers with plazas, ceremonial platforms, and elaborate drainage and water management systems, all evidence of a society capable of both architectural and societal complexity. Yet the purpose and planning behind many structures remain partially obscure. How did the Olmecs coordinate labor and construction on such a scale without written records comparable to other ancient civilizations? What societal structures or beliefs motivated the creation of monumental architecture in such a dense tropical environment? The most iconic legacies of the Olmecs are their colossal stone heads, some reaching over 3 meters in height and weighing several tons. Each portrays an individualized face, suggesting not mythic beings but perhaps rulers or revered figures. How were these enormous stones quarried, transported, and erected without wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden? And why did the Olmecs choose to immortalize these figures in stone, leaving their exact significance tantalizingly vague? Were they political symbols, spiritual guardians, or markers of lineage and power? Beyond these heads, the Olmecs produced finely crafted jade figurines, ritual objects, and ceramics that hint at religious and cultural sophistication. Imagery often combines human, animal, and supernatural elements, suggesting a worldview in which the natural and spiritual realms were deeply intertwined. Some objects feature jaguar motifs, serpent imagery, or abstract patterns whose meanings remain uncertain. Could these symbols encode knowledge about astronomy, cosmology, or the cycles of nature? And what role did these objects play in ceremonies, political structures, or rites of passage? Urban planning in Olmec centers further suggests advanced organizational skill. The layout of plazas, pyramidal platforms, and ceremonial mounds demonstrates a deliberate attention to space and perhaps cosmology. Water management systems, including canals and drainage, indicate practical ingenuity, especially in the seasonally flooded tropical lowlands. How did these communities develop knowledge of engineering and hydraulics that allowed such sustained urban life? Were their innovations inspired by environmental necessity, ritual, or both? Trade and cultural influence were vital aspects of Olmec life. Artifacts, jade, obsidian, and other materials traveled across Mesoamerica, linking disparate regions through exchange networks. How extensive were these networks, and how did the Olmecs maintain them? Could the reach of their trade explain the diffusion of certain iconographies, technologies, and ritual practices across later civilizations, from the Maya to the Zapotec? And what knowledge was shared, adapted, or lost as these ideas spread through time and geography? Religious practice appears central to Olmec culture. Evidence suggests complex rituals involving offerings, feasting, and possibly human sacrifice, alongside symbolic depictions of deities or supernatural beings. Yet much remains enigmatic. What cosmological principles guided their ceremonies? Did they have a structured priesthood or spiritual hierarchy? And how did the Olmecs understand the relationship between human life, the natural world, and the divine, concepts that seem deeply embedded in their art, architecture, and monumental sculptures? The decline of the Olmec civilization around 400 BCE adds to the mystery. Urban centers were abandoned, monumental construction ceased, and populations shifted. Was this decline caused by environmental change, resource depletion, internal social upheaval, or external pressures? And yet, elements of Olmec culture, symbolism, iconography, and ritual practice appear in later Mesoamerican societies, suggesting a transmission of knowledge and influence that survives even as the original civilization faded. What aspects of their intellectual, spiritual, and technological achievements might remain hidden, waiting for discovery in artifacts, landscapes, or oral memory? Walking among the remains of San Lorenzo or La Venta today, one is struck by both the sophistication and the enduring mystery of the Olmecs. Every colossal head, every carved jade figure, every ceremonial mound invites speculation, yet offers few definitive answers. How did this society achieve such monumental artistry and urban complexity? What knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, or political, was encoded in their sculptures, layouts, and artifacts? And what truths about human creativity, organization, and belief remain just beyond our grasp, concealed by time and the dense Mesoamerican landscape? The Olmecs challenge our understanding of early civilizations. They demonstrate that even in challenging environments, human societies can achieve remarkable architectural, artistic, and social sophistication. Yet their mysteries endure, reminding us that much of history is encoded not only in stone and artifact, but in questions that persist through millennia. As the sun filters through the thick canopy of the tropical lowlands, illuminating a colossal stone head and casting shadows across a long-forgotten plaza, the Olmecs seem to watch silently. The wind whispers through the ruins, carrying echoes of ritual chants, bustling markets, and lives that unfolded long ago. And while many answers remain beyond reach, the civilization of the Olmecs continues to call us to wonder, inviting us to ponder the knowledge, stories, and mysteries they left behind, hidden, enigmatic, and enduring across time. From the dense, humid lowlands of Mesoamerica, where the Olmecs carved colossal heads and ceremonial mounds that continue to baffle and inspire, our journey now travels far south across the continent to the high plains of the Andes. Here, above 3,800 meters, in the windswept altiplano of modern-day Bolivia, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku, a place where stone, sky, and human ambition converge in ways that continue to challenge our understanding. Imagine standing before the monolithic gateway of the sun, its intricate carvings etched deep into andesite, the cold wind biting at your face as clouds roll over the distant peaks of the Andes. The surrounding plains are vast and barren, yet scattered with the ruins of temples, palaces, and ceremonial platforms, remnants of a civilization that thrived in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Tiwanaku emerged as a major cultural and political center between roughly 300 and 1000 CE, shaping the highlands of South America long before the rise of the Inca Empire. Its influence extended across the Altiplano, with evidence of architectural, agricultural, and social innovations that allowed it to sustain a large and complex society. How did the Tiwanaku people engineer such resilience in an environment defined by thin air, cold nights, and unpredictable weather? What knowledge of agriculture, water management, and stone construction allowed them to thrive where others might have struggled? The city's architecture is particularly striking, characterized by precise stonework, massive monoliths, and enigmatic carvings. Stones weighing multiple tons were cut, transported, and fitted with remarkable accuracy, often without the use of mortar. The exact methods remain a matter of debate. How did a society without advanced machinery move such enormous stones across uneven terrain? And what was the reasoning behind the precise alignments of the city's temples, pyramids, and ceremonial platforms? Were they dictated by religious symbolism, astronomical observation, or both? Agriculture and resource management were central to Tiwanaku's survival. The civilization developed an extensive system of raised fields, or sucacolis, which enhanced drainage, preserved soil fertility, and extended the growing season in an unforgiving climate. Such ingenuity allowed them to support dense populations in a region that otherwise offered little arable land. Could this sophisticated agricultural system reflect broader knowledge of environmental engineering and ecological observation now lost to time? And what other technologies or practices might have been employed to maintain societal stability and prosperity in such an extreme environment? Art and symbolism further deepen the mystery of Tiwanaku. The Gateway of the Sun, with its central figure surrounded by arrays of smaller attendants or deities, is laden with iconography that has puzzled scholars for decades. Sculptures, pottery, and textiles from the site suggest a cosmology in which humans, animals, and the divine were intricately connected. Were these symbols representations of celestial bodies, spiritual concepts, or mythological narratives? And how did the Tiwanaku encode cultural and religious knowledge in ways that continue to challenge modern interpretation? Trade and influence were equally remarkable. Archaeological evidence points to networks spanning hundreds of kilometers across the Andes, with Tiwanaku artifacts found as far as the Pacific coast and the Amazon basin. How were these trade routes maintained in such rugged terrain? What goods, ideas, or spiritual practices flowed along these paths, and how did they shape both Tiwanaku society and the broader cultural landscape of pre-Columbian South America? Yet many aspects of Tiwanaku remain enigmatic, particularly its sudden decline around 1000 CE. Cities were abandoned, monumental construction ceased, and the Altiplano eventually fell into relative silence. Was this due to environmental factors such as prolonged drought, soil exhaustion, or climatic shifts? Or did social upheaval, political fragmentation, or external pressures precipitate the collapse? And even in its decline, what knowledge, belief systems, and innovations were preserved, transmitted, or lost entirely? Walking among the ruins today, one is struck by both the scale and subtlety of Tiwanaku's achievements. Each carved stone, platform, and ceremonial space is a testament to human ingenuity, yet also a repository of unanswered questions. How did the Tiwanaku people organize labor and maintain social cohesion in a high-altitude environment that few could inhabit comfortably? What rituals were performed on these platforms, and what knowledge of astronomy, spirituality, or mathematics guided their construction? Tiwanaku challenges our understanding of what is possible in seemingly inhospitable environments. It demonstrates that human creativity, technical skill, and social organization can flourish in conditions that appear extreme by modern standards. Yet its mysteries endure, reminding us that much of history is obscured by time, climate, and the absence of written records. The city's ruins evoke a sense of awe and wonder, compelling us to ask questions about the limits of human achievement, the ingenuity of early civilizations, and the knowledge that may still lie buried beneath the Andes. As the Andean sun dips low over the distant peaks, casting long shadows across Tiwanaku's stone terraces, one senses the echoes of rituals, festivals, and lives long past. The wind whistles through the remains of ceremonial spaces, carrying whispers of a civilization that understood the sky, the land, and human potential in ways that remain largely enigmatic today. And while we can piece together fragments of their story, the Tiwanaku civilization continues to invite reflection, speculation, and wonder. What secrets, knowledge, and wisdom remain hidden within the stones, waiting to reveal the full scope of this extraordinary society? From the windswept high plains of Bolivia, where the Tiwanaku civilization rose in isolation, shaping monumental stone architecture and intricate ceremonial spaces in the Andes, our journey now turns northward across continents to the arid deserts of southern Egypt. Here lies one of the most enigmatic prehistoric sites in the Sahara, Nabta Playa. Imagine standing beneath a cloudless sky, the sun beating down on an expanse of flat, rocky terrain scattered with stone circles, aligned monoliths, and subterranean pits. The silence is profound, broken only by the whisper of the desert wind over sand and stone, as if the landscape itself holds echoes of rituals performed thousands of years ago. These stones, some arranged in precise geometries, suggest a society deeply attuned to the movements of the heavens and the cycles of the seasons. Nabta Playa flourished between approximately 7,500 and 5,000 BCE, making it far older than the famed pyramids of Giza or the monuments of the Nile Valley civilizations that followed. Archaeological evidence suggests that the site was not merely a seasonal gathering place, but a center of ritual, astronomy, and social organization. How did these early desert communities conceive and construct complex arrangements of stones with alignments that correspond to solstices, the rising of certain stars, or other celestial events? Could this be the earliest known example of sophisticated astronomical observation in human history? The site's stone circles and alignments are particularly compelling. Some stones appear deliberately positioned to mark the summer solstice sunrise, hinting at careful observation over many generations. Others form more complex configurations, their purpose still debated. Were these constructions purely ceremonial, intended to honor deities or ancestors? Or did they function as astronomical calendars, guiding agricultural or ritual activity in a landscape defined by scarcity and environmental extremes? And if they were calendars, how accurate was the knowledge embedded in their placement, and how did it influence the lives of those who lived here? Artifacts recovered from Nabta Playa add further intrigue. Pottery, figurines, and evidence of domesticated animals indicate that these communities were highly organized, capable of sustaining seasonal gatherings of extended groups. Social structures capable of coordinating such large-scale ritual activity must have existed, yet their exact nature is elusive. Did these gatherings serve primarily religious purposes, or were they also moments of political negotiation, trade, or cultural transmission? What knowledge about human cooperation and social cohesion allowed these early desert peoples to build structures that have endured for millennia in such a harsh environment? The presence of aligned stones and possible ceremonial structures has sparked speculation beyond conventional archaeology. Some researchers suggest that Nabta Playa represents a proto-astronomical observatory, a center where prehistoric humans studied the heavens and integrated celestial observation into social and ritual life. Others point to symbolic interpretations, proposing that the stones encode cosmological or spiritual knowledge. What ideas about the universe, time, and human existence might these people have held? And how did they transmit that knowledge across generations without written language? Environmental context adds another layer of mystery. During the period of Nabta Playa's occupation, the Sahara was far wetter and more hospitable than it is today, with lakes, rivers, and grasslands supporting human and animal life. How did climate change affect the development, use, and eventual abandonment of these ceremonial sites? And what strategies, technological, social, or spiritual, did these communities employ to adapt to the shifting environment of the early Holocene? The enigmatic stone arrangements also invite questions about cultural connections. While Nabta Playa predates the dynastic Egyptian civilization, some suggest that its astronomical knowledge and ritual practices may have influenced later developments along the Nile. Could the alignments and ceremonial traditions of Nabta Playa represent the earliest threads of Egyptian cosmology, or were they an entirely independent innovation, reflecting universal human fascination with the sky and cycles of nature? And what was the full scope of knowledge held by these early desert peoples, now largely lost to time? Walking among the stone circles today, one feels both the permanence and fragility of human endeavor. Each monolith, each subtle alignment, seems imbued with intention, yet the exact meanings remain tantalizingly out of reach. How did the builders observe, measure, and translate celestial events into monumental stone. What rituals, celebrations, or knowledge systems were enacted here that might never be recorded in history? And what secrets lie beneath the sands awaiting discovery that could illuminate the cognitive and cultural sophistication of these prehistoric communities? Nabta Playa challenges our assumptions about early human societies. It demonstrates that complex social organization, ritual sophistication, and careful observation of heavens were possible thousands of years ago, before the rise of formal civilizations in Egypt. Yet the mysteries endure, reminding us that much of human history is hidden in the interplay between landscape, observation, and cultural expression. The stones, silent yet eloquent, continue to speak across millennia, inviting reflection, curiosity, and wonder. As the desert sun sets behind distant sandstone ridges, casting long shadows across the stone circles and pits of Nabta Playa, the sight seems almost alive. The wind carries whispers of ceremonies, gatherings, and knowledge long vanished. And while much remains uncertain, Nabta Playa stands as a profound testament to human ingenuity and early engagement with the cosmos. Its mysteries endure, prompting us to ask, what other knowledge, understanding, and cultural sophistication were achieved by these prehistoric desert peoples, now buried beneath sand, stone, and the vast expanse of time? From the sun-bleached stones of Nabta Playa, where prehistoric humans aligned monoliths with the movements of the heavens, we now cross the Mediterranean to the rugged, windswept landscapes of Sardinia. Here, among rolling hills, rocky outcrops, and dense Mediterranean shrubland, rise thousands of mysterious stone towers known as nuraghi, monuments of a civilization that thrived between roughly 1800 and 500 BCE. Standing before these massive structures, some over 20 meters tall and perfectly circular, it is impossible not to sense the precision and silent authority of the people who built them. The nuragic towers dominate the landscape, casting long shadows at sunrise and sunset, as if marking the passage of time itself. Walking along the uneven paths that wind between clusters of these towers, one notices the craftsmanship. Enormous stones carefully shaped and stacked without mortar, walls that slope inward to create stability, and chambers hidden within, sometimes with narrow staircases or small openings whose purpose is not fully understood. Some towers appear isolated on hilltops, while others are clustered in complex settlements, connected perhaps by pathways now lost to time. What drove the nuragic people to invest such effort in these monumental structures? Were they fortresses, defensive bastions against rival groups, or ceremonial centers where rituals and gatherings unfolded? Archaeologists have long debated the purpose of the nuraghi. Excavations have uncovered artifacts including bronze weapons, pottery, and figurines, suggesting a culture of both daily practical life and spiritual or ceremonial complexity. Yet no written records survive, leaving the interpretation of these structures largely speculative. Some scholars propose that the nuraghi served as astronomical observatories, aligned with solstices or celestial bodies, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of the sky. Could it be that the stones were laid not only for defense or habitation, but to mark time, track seasonal changes, or guide agricultural practices in the rugged Sardinian terrain? The scale of construction is staggering. Transporting and shaping massive stones without modern tools or vehicles required ingenuity, coordination, and knowledge of physics and engineering. How did the nuragic people quarry, move, and assemble stones weighing multiple tons? Were there specialized labor groups, rituals of preparation, or lost techniques now forgotten? And beyond the physical effort, what societal organization and collective knowledge were necessary to sustain such monumental endeavors over generations? Within the towers themselves, narrow chambers and staircases hint at a dual function, practical shelter and symbolic meaning. Some nuraghi contain small altars or niches, perhaps used in religious ceremonies, while others may have housed leaders, guardians, or stored precious resources. The complexity of interior layouts varies, suggesting that each tower may have had its own specific purpose or status within the community. What knowledge guided these architectural decisions, and how did each tower fit into the broader social, political, or spiritual landscape of nuragic Sardinia? Clusters of nuraghi often appear alongside sacred wells, open-air temples, and stone circles, suggesting a society deeply intertwined with the natural world and the cycles of water, sun, and stars. Sacred wells, with steps descending to carefully constructed subterranean chambers, indicate ritual practices tied to water, a vital resource on the rocky island. Some wells align with celestial events, reinforcing the notion that astronomy and spirituality were inseparable in nuragic thought. Did these people develop a calendar system or a method to harmonize daily life with celestial rhythms? And if so, how much of that knowledge has been lost, leaving only stone monuments as silent witnesses? Trade and cultural exchange also hint at the wider reach of the nuragic people. Sardinian obsidian, bronze, and crafted artifacts have been found across the Mediterranean, suggesting networks that connected the island to mainland Italy, the Balearic Islands, and beyond. How were these networks organized? And what knowledge of navigation, negotiation, or resource management allowed the nuragic communities to thrive in relative isolation? Could their influence extend further than the surviving archaeological record suggests, shaping or inspiring other Mediterranean cultures in ways we have yet to fully understand? The art and iconography associated with the nuragic civilization add another layer of mystery. Bronze statuettes, weapons, and ritual objects depict warriors, animals, and abstract symbols. Some figurines resemble deities or spiritual guardians, while others depict ordinary people engaged in daily life. What stories did these objects convey, and how were they integrated into rituals or governance? Did these artifacts serve as tools of social cohesion, religious devotion, or markers of political authority? And why did such a culture, which achieved remarkable architectural and artistic feats, leave no written records, relying instead on symbols, monuments, and oral traditions that have largely vanished? Even the location of the nuraghi suggests intentionality and knowledge. Hilltops, river valleys, and coastal positions appear carefully selected for visibility, access to resources, or strategic advantage. Yet many towers are aligned in ways that suggest a deeper understanding of the landscape, solar paths, water flow, or territorial boundaries. Were these alignments purely functional, or did they carry ritual, astronomical, or symbolic significance? Could the placement of each tower encode knowledge about the cosmos, agricultural cycles, or social hierarchy? Despite centuries of study, the nuragic civilization retains profound mysteries. Why did such a flourishing society eventually decline, leaving behind thousands of stone towers and settlements largely abandoned? Were shifts in climate, resources, or trade routes responsible, or did internal social dynamics drive the transformation? And even in their decline, what knowledge, technological skill, or spiritual practice might have persisted or influenced neighboring cultures in ways we have yet to uncover? Standing among the Nuragi today, the observer is struck by a sense of both permanence and elusiveness. The stones, shaped and positioned with careful attention, withstand millennia of wind, rain, and erosion, yet their meaning remains tantalizingly just out of reach. How did the Nuragic people view the world around them? How did they understand the relationship between human society, the natural landscape, and the cosmos? And what knowledge of construction, astronomy, and social organization has been irretrievably lost, leaving us to wonder at their ingenuity? The Nuragic towers remind us that ancient civilizations often leave traces that challenge our assumptions about technological skill, social complexity, and human ambition. They stand as silent sentinels, connecting us to a culture that understood stone, space, and sky in ways that remain largely mysterious. And while archaeology has begun to illuminate aspects of their lives, countless questions endure about purpose, belief, knowledge, and the unseen forces that guided their society. As the Mediterranean sun sinks toward the horizon, casting golden light across the circular towers, terraces, and ruined villages, the Nuragi appear almost alive. Shadows stretch across ancient stone, echoing the passage of centuries and the lives of those who built, inhabited, and revered these structures. The wind carries whispers of ceremonies, watchful guardians, and collective effort long past. And though much of the Nuragic story remains buried beneath centuries of earth, stone, and silence, their towers continue to speak to us of human ingenuity, the mysteries of the past, and the enduring question of what knowledge, innovation, and culture remain hidden, waiting to be rediscovered in Sardinia's rocky hills. From the rugged hills of Sardinia, where the Nuragic towers rise as silent sentinels to human ingenuity and mystery, our journey now crosses the Mediterranean and the vast deserts of North Africa. Here, in the remote expanse of the Fezzan Desert in modern-day Libya, once thrived a civilization that has long captured the imagination of historians and archaeologists, the Garamantian Kingdom. Picture the scene: endless stretches of sand punctuated by scattered oases, the distant shimmer of heat rising from the dunes, and ancient stone settlements partially buried beneath centuries of shifting desert sands. Among these harsh yet hauntingly beautiful landscapes lie the remnants of cities, forts, and an extensive network of underground irrigation channels, known as fagaras, which transformed the arid land into a realm capable of supporting sophisticated society. The Garamantians flourished roughly between 500 BCE and 700 CE, establishing a kingdom that was both politically formidable and economically vibrant. Their strategic location in the Sahara allowed them to control crucial trans-Saharan trade routes, connecting sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean world. Caravans laden with gold, salt, and other valuable commodities passed under their watchful eye. How did a civilization survive, let alone thrive, in one of the most inhospitable regions on the planet? What knowledge of agriculture, water management, and social organization enabled them to build cities in the shifting sands of the Sahara? The architecture of Garamantian settlements is as compelling as the desert itself. Excavations have revealed stone forts, town walls, and ceremonial spaces, often situated atop rocky outcrops or near oases. These structures suggest a society capable of sophisticated planning, defense, and resource management. Yet much remains unclear. How were these stone forts constructed in an environment with minimal timber or durable building materials? Were these structures primarily defensive, ceremonial, or symbolic of political authority? And how did they manage to organize labor and resources to maintain urban centers in such extreme conditions? Central to Garamantian survival and influence were the phageras, subterranean canals that transported water from underground aquifers to agricultural fields. These impressive feats of engineering enabled the cultivation of crops, the sustenance of livestock, and the support of dense populations in a desert environment. The scale of these projects is remarkable. Networks of canals stretch for kilometers, carefully graded to maintain a consistent flow, often hidden beneath shifting sands. How did the Garamantians acquire the technical knowledge to construct such precise and resilient irrigation systems? Were these skills developed locally, or were they influenced by interactions with neighboring civilizations along trade routes? And what secrets about their construction and maintenance remain buried, perhaps lost to the relentless desert winds? The Garamantians were not only engineers and traders, but also skilled warriors and political strategists. Ancient accounts, including those of Roman historians, described their use of camel-mounted cavalry, a formidable force that could navigate the desert with agility and precision. This mastery of desert warfare allowed the Garamantians to protect trade routes, expand their influence, and interact with neighboring powers, including Carthage and later Rome. Yet despite their apparent power, so little is known about their governance, social structures, or the beliefs that guided their society. How did they maintain cohesion in a kingdom spread across an unforgiving landscape? What role did religion, ritual, or political ideology play in shaping their culture and society? Archaeological evidence also points to a complex spiritual life. Temples, tombs, and ritual sites reveal that the Garamantians practiced ceremonies that may have involved ancestor worship, celestial observation, or offerings to deities associated with fertility and survival in the desert. Human remains, sometimes interred with goods or jewelry, indicate social stratification and suggest that certain individuals were revered or held special status. What did the Garamantians understand about life, death, and the cosmos? Were their rituals purely spiritual, or did they also serve practical purposes, such as marking agricultural cycles, asserting political authority, or reinforcing social cohesion? And how much of this knowledge, once deeply encoded in their culture, has been irretrievably lost? Trade and interaction with distant cultures added further depth to Garamantian society. Artifacts from the kingdom include Mediterranean pottery, North African metalwork, and objects originating from sub-Saharan Africa. These findings indicate a network of exchange that was both extensive and sophisticated, reflecting not only commerce but also the transmission of ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. How did the Garamantians manage and navigate such a network, especially in a landscape that challenged even the most seasoned travelers? What influence did they have on their neighbors, and conversely, how did external civilizations shape Garamantian culture, economy, and knowledge? Yet despite their accomplishments, the Garamantians remained shrouded in mystery. Cities and forts eventually fell into ruin. The kingdom faded from prominence, and much of their written and oral history vanished. Scholars debate the causes of this decline: climate change, desertification, shifts in trade routes, or military pressures from emerging powers such as Rome? How did a civilization so adept at survival and adaptation ultimately succumb to the forces of history? And what aspects of their knowledge, technology, and societal structure disappeared with them, leaving only ruins, canals, and scattered artifacts as witnesses to their ingenuity? Exploring the ruins today, one is struck by both the ingenuity and the enigma of the Garamantians. Standing among stone walls half buried in sand, gazing across a desert that has barely changed in thousands of years, one senses the rhythm of life that once pulsed here. Caravans moving across the dunes, water channeled beneath the earth to sustain crops, ceremonies performed under the vast Sahara sky. How did the Garamantians perceive time, the environment, and the cosmos? How did their knowledge of engineering, astronomy, and society enable them to flourish where others might have perished? The Garamantians challenge our understanding of what ancient civilizations could achieve in extreme environments. They demonstrate that human innovation, social organization, and adaptation can transcend harsh landscapes, creating societies capable of trade, warfare, and cultural complexity in ways that still surprise modern scholars. Yet their story is fragmentary, scattered across ruins, artifacts, and the shifting sands of the Sahara. What secrets remain buried beneath dunes? What knowledge lies hidden in ancient stone canals? And what truths about their society are still waiting to be uncovered? As the desert sun dips low over the Fezzan, casting long shadows across forts, settlements, and irrigation networks, the remnants of the Garamantian kingdom seem almost alive, whispering across millennia. The wind carries echoes of caravan routes, rituals, and the diligent work of countless hands that transformed an unforgiving desert into a thriving kingdom. And though so much about this civilization remains unknown, their legacy endures, not only in the ruins and phagoras that have survived the ages, but in the questions they inspire about human ingenuity, resilience, and the mysteries that remain hidden beneath the sands of the Sahara. And then, almost as suddenly as it appears, the Samarra culture fades. By around 4800 BCE, its distinctive traits merge into the rising Ubaid culture that would dominate the next era. The fine painted pottery gives way to plainer wares. The irrigation systems continue, but the artistic symbols change. Was this a natural evolution, a merging of traditions? Or did something disrupt the balance? Environmental shifts, flooding, social upheaval? Or did the people of Samarra simply move on, their knowledge absorbed into larger networks? Archaeologists searching the region face another problem. The land itself has changed. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers have shifted course many times over millennia, burying or eroding the settlements along their banks. Some sites are now hidden beneath layers of silt, others beneath modern towns. The physical evidence of the Samarra culture is like a whisper beneath the soil, faint, fragmented, incomplete. What more lies hidden beneath the alluvial plains of Iraq, waiting to be uncovered by future excavations or remote sensing technologies? And beyond the physical remains, there is the question of identity. Who were these people really? What did they call themselves? What stories did they tell around their hearths, beside the irrigation canals at dusk? Did they see themselves as innovators, as keepers of tradition, or simply as farmers and potters sustaining their families in the rhythm of the river? In contemplating the Samarra culture, we find ourselves at a threshold, a civilization balanced between simplicity and complexity, isolation and connection. It is both familiar and alien. We recognize in their works the spark of human ingenuity, yet we cannot fully trace its source. The Samara people seem to appear from the mist of prehistory with technologies, patterns, and social structures that feel almost too advanced for their time. And so, as with so many early chapters in humanity's story, we are left with more questions than answers. What unseen forces guided their progress? What knowledge was lost when their culture faded into the ubaid horizon? Could there be, buried beneath layers of time and river silt, the remains of something even older? A missing link in the evolution of civilization? For now, the Samara culture remains a mystery, one that sits quietly beneath the Mesopotamian plain, its legacy painted on broken shards of clay. Perhaps one day the earth itself will yield another clue. Until then, the silence of Samara continues to speak in the language of unanswered questions. We move now from the compelling enigma of our previous chapter into the quieter stillness of the river plains of ancient Mesopotamia, into the world of the Samara culture, a scarcely glimpsed civilization whose traces whisper of both brilliance and mystery. Imagine a wide, gently sloping floodplain of the upper Tigris-Euphrates region more than 6,000 years ago, the mud-rich soil still damp from the seasonal rise of rivers, reeds, and rushes lining shallow channels, and small villages of rectangular mud-brick houses clustered beside irrigation ditches. In that still, early Neolithic light, you might walk across a newly paved surface in one of those settlements, pick up a bowl whose surface glows with fine slip and painted geometric pattern, and realize you are handling not just a vessel, but a statement of organization, artistry, and purpose. This is the world of the Samara culture, dated roughly between 5,500 and 4,800 BCE, though even these boundaries remain uncertain. At the heart of what scholars call the Samara culture is the remarkable pottery, bowls and vases, often large, beautifully finished, decorated with stylized animals, birds or fish, and bold geometric motifs painted in dark slip upon pale clay. The craftsmanship is astonishingly refined for its time. At sites such as Tel Essaouan, Tel Baghis, and Chagamami, the ceramic tradition is so distinct that the Samara ware becomes a defining symbol of the culture itself. Yet as we peer into this world, a number of puzzles begin to emerge. For one thing, how did such a culture arise so early? At Tel Essaouan, evidence of irrigation and flax cultivation reveals an advanced level of organization, a community not merely surviving from the land, but shaping it. They harnessed water, redirected its flow, and built systems of control that hint at collective planning, cooperation, perhaps even central authority, and this in a period when much of Mesopotamia was still transitioning from hunter-gatherer groups to settled agricultural life. Another question lingers. Where did the Samara culture truly originate, and how far did it spread? Its heartland lies in central Mesopotamia, yet pottery in the Samara style has been discovered far beyond this core, across the northern plains, into the Zagros foothills, and toward the edges of Syria. Were these the products of trade, the handiwork of traveling artisans, or the imitations of distant peoples inspired by a sophisticated center of influence? Each fragment recovered from these outer regions blurs the boundary between diffusion and migration. And what does such uniform craftsmanship imply about social structure? A finely standardized style suggests specialization, the presence of trained artisans, possibly working within organized workshops. It suggests coordination, shared aesthetic values, and perhaps a hierarchy capable of sustaining such production. These are not the hallmarks of small, isolated villages. They hint instead at a complex, interconnected society, a precursor perhaps to the great urban civilizations that would soon rise along the Tigris and Euphrates. But once we begin to listen closely to the silences between the facts, the mystery deepens. The monumental scale of irrigation, the evidence of planned architecture, and the consistent pottery style together paint a picture of a society more advanced than its archaeological footprint suggests. How did such organization emerge without written records, monumental architecture, or visible evidence of kingship or priesthood? Some have proposed that the Samarra culture represents an early experiment in social cohesion, a model of proto-urban life that set the stage for Mesopotamia's later city-states. Others wonder if its sudden sophistication hints at influences not yet understood. Could there have been an earlier, as yet undiscovered tradition from which Samarra inherited its methods? Or did knowledge travel from elsewhere, carried along trade routes now erased by time? The pottery itself invites speculation. The motifs, spirals, zigzags, birds in flight, stylized antelopes, seem more than decorative. Some researchers think these patterns weren't just decoration at all. They might have been symbols tied to fertility, to water, even to the cosmos itself. Others believe this could be one of the first attempts at visual storytelling, movement, rhythm, narrative, long before humans ever invented writing. So every one of these painted bowls isn't just pottery. It's a message from people who lived 4,000 years before us, speaking in a language we can no longer decode. We're looking at communication that predates the alphabet. Its meaning is gone, and what's left behind is a mystery, sealed in paint, staring back across the abyss of time.